Okay. Recording in progress. Let's see how it goes. I think we're going to go live here right away. And there it is. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Hash Church episode frickin' 21, season 11. Holy smokes. We're still going. Well, as always, I'd like to start off the show by giving a big shout out to my sponsors because they rock and roll. Let's make sure, first of all, before I do this, are you guys can all hear me? You're alive? I see and hear you. Oh man, I love my group. I love the audience because I was just about to go into the audience and ask before I went through the sponsors that people could actually hear me. So wonderful that you can. Without further ado, I am going to share the logos. And here we go. Big shout out to the Press Club. Trusted by top hash makers from around the world since 2016, the Press Club is your one-stop shop for award-winning solventless gear. From press bags to wash bags to presses to vessels, you'll find everything you need from wash to press. We're big fans of the Press Club and what they're doing in the community, so we're excited to have them on board as an official sponsor for Hash Church. They are made in the USA. They've got the patented pink stitch, zero blowout guarantee, small family-owned business. Try to support small family-owned businesses when you can. It helps. Free expedited shipping on $75 or more. International shipping also available. You can visit them at www.thepressclub.co and use the code HashChurch to take 10% off your purchase. So big thanks to those guys. Second up, we have my good homies, Mark and Dennis from over at the Craft Greenery. They want everyone to know that Sauce Rosin Labs is coming to Vancouver, coming to British Columbia, and they are going to be very excited to be one of the stores that you can pick that up. So big shout out to the Craft Greenery, Vancouver's premier cannabis dispensary, for sponsoring today's event. They're all about bringing the highest quality and widest variety of cannabis and extracts right to your doorstep across Canada. Whether you're a connoisseur or a curious newcomer, Craft Greenery has something special for everyone, making your cannabis journey both unique and unforgettable. Check them out for an unparalleled selection that's curated with love and expertise. Keep up the great work, Craft Greenery. I hope to see those guys in the next couple of days. Here's a new sponsor we have. I want to give a shout out to Grassroots Fabric Pots. Bring soil to life. Power up your cannabis grow with Grassroots Fabric Pots, proud sponsor of Hash Church. These handcrafted, breathable fabric pots are built for living soil, delivering unmatched aeration, superior drainage, and explosive root growth for bigger, healthier yields. Whether you're a home grower or a commercial pro, Grassroots Fabric Pots are your key to legendary harvests. Shop now at www.grassrootsfabricpots.com and grow like the best. You can use Hash Church as a discount code, I believe. Check them out there. Thanks for your support, gentlemen at Grassroots Fabric Pots. And of course, we would be remiss if we didn't mention our good brothers and sisters over at Puffco. Big thanks to Puffco for sponsoring Hash Church. Let's be honest, Puffco has absolutely revolutionized cannabis culture. It's normalized extracts with their incredible portable devices like the Puffco Peak Pro, the Pivot, and the Proxy. These amazing units deliver top-tier performance and style, making them favorites in our community. Puffco's unwavering support of all things cannabis keeps us lit and united. Check them out. Puffco's got your back. www.puffco.com and at Puffco. Last but not least, I got to give myself a shout out. Bubble bags stand out as the premier choice for water hash extraction, and it's no surprise why. Well, we're the original innovators who set the standard for quality and performance. We crafted with durability in mind, and these bags come with a lifetime warranty, ensuring you're covered for years of consistent use. Team behind Bubble Bag takes pride in our pioneering legacy, backing every product with unwavering confidence and a commitment to excellence, making us the trusted go-to for enthusiasts and professionals alike seeking top-tier hash extraction results. You can find us at www.bubblebag.com, and of course, Hash Church 10 will give you a 10% discount over on the site. What's going on, Colin? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing really good, man. Just enjoying the Sunday. Um, was looking at some of this blueberry banana I have over here. It's delicious, and
Ooh-wee.
it's a little chilly on the East Coast this past week. So I think I'm
Yeah, don't tell me that. I'm
still,
flying there today.
still bundled up,
I
you
got the
know.
Legends hoodie on, dude. I put the warm
Nice.
hood. You look like you got the warm hoodie
I
on,
do,
dude.
bro. I found this hoodie that has this like amazing skid inside of it. So,
Yeah, dude, that's what's up.
I love it. But
You gonna
so
go
I
rob some liquor
found,
stores or what?
yeah, no,
No.
I'm gonna go get, no, it's not my substance, but
That is awesome.
but
Man,
yeah,
talk about sponsors, dude. We're starting to get some good little groups popping in, little mom and pop operations, giving us a show here, a show there. Big shout out to the sponsors, man. I really appreciate you guys. Definitely a big shout out to Mark and Dennis at the Craft Greenery who just texted me to thank me. These are the most polite dudes in the cannabis industry. Go give them some support. Rosin Labs, Rosin Sauce is going to be in the house. Dude, I got 6 jars of this rosin from Sauce Labs. I was going to photograph it. I was going to do reviews on it. I literally smoked all of it like a crackhead, Colin. And then my buddy Craig was like, let's go snowboarding. I'm like, I can't wait for you to try this sauce, man. And so I go and I start looking and I'm like, every jar is empty. And one jar has like the smallest little dab in it. I was like, dude, I'm sorry, man. I'm a crackhead for this stuff. So I'm really excited for those guys to get the Sauce Rosin Labs in and see how it takes foot here in British Columbia.
no, I know how that goes, man. As a photographer, it's like you're always like, I want to do this thing with it, but then you're like, ooh, that's really nice, and then it just continue. You keep saying it to yourself until it's gone.
Dude, I have so much beautiful 6-star bubble hash right now, and I've barely been photographing it at all.
Yeah,
I do have Ruben is here right now. I don't know if you remember Ruben from Valenveras. He came in
I
from Barcelona just a couple of weeks ago. Real wild, curly-haired
I
guy.
do
Was
remember Ruben. Yeah, yeah.
talking about his Neo Spectre device. This little guy right here,
Nice. I saw you post about
dude,
that. That looks really cool. So
bro,
what's the
what
story? What's
up?
the backstory on that? Like what is it? There's a lot of devices that come out. We've seen
Correct.
orange photonics, the purple thing,
Yep.
blah.
Yep.
They all kind of do their own thing, right? But they all kind of miss each other's kind of like one solves a problem, the other doesn't kind of thing. But
It's almost like MP3 players when they first came out. I got my first MP3 player. It was 128 kilobytes. That was the memory on it.
yeah.
So I would download 2 songs of Bob Marley off the internet, and that would be it. I could put 2 songs on the MP3. So, and then I got like, I don't know, I remember there was one that looked like a Walkman, but it was a hard drive unit. And I would, I was basically working up to record. I recorded with a mini disc player. Then I got the DAT recorder. So I went through all of these things, and it really wasn't until I got to the DAT that I was like, okay, this is the fucking thing. This is why everyone's using this fucking thing. That's why masters are always on these tapes. And you don't know that when you're not a musician, when you're just a musical aficionado, if you will. You don't really realize that. So I think like the last one I had of this was the Gemacert. It was like, 60 points, all of these different you couldn't breathe around this thing, bro. If you opened a door, it fucked everything up. If there was music and bass playing, it fucked everything up. So I kind of lost interest in them, I'll be honest. And when I met Ruben and he started showing me this thing and he's
Hmm.
holding it and he's doing this and I'm like, whoa, dude, like, are we gonna have to He's like, oh, don't worry, my friend, it's all good, it's all good. We could do it on a train. We could do it on a trampoline if you want. Like, no, we worked at the Dank Club and Book Club the other day. It was so fucking loud, 50 Cent blaring on the stereo, people banging the table, touching the unit while it's on. None of it affected it, bro. We were validating shit within 1% of HPLC and GC.
Wow.
Today, which blew my mind, today we took a piece of a plant off of a leaf off of my plant. We cooked it we dried it right out.
Hmm.
And this fucking thing, after like a minute, showed me.
Pull it back. Oh, there it goes. Yeah.
No, there we go.
There it
There we
is.
go.
There it
These are the
is.
scan results. So now it's telling me my nitrogen, my potassium, all of these things, right,
Got it.
that are in the
Wow.
plant.
Okay.
And what's crazy about it is that, here, let me let Wade in. He's coming in. He's in the hospital right now. So we definitely want to hear from Wade. And I'll gladly stop talking about what I'm talking about. These are the targets, Colin. for growth. So let me
Right.
just get it going again here. There
Yep.
it is. So now you've got your minimum, your maximum, and then your averages
Right.
are were all where those numbers I just showed you, they all fell within those averages. So he
Yep.
said, wow, this plant is
Yeah.
really well fed. Imagine as a grower, dude,
Yeah.
that took me a minute. I dried a leaf in
Yeah.
my air fryer and then I put it inside this thing, and a minute later I had the full macro and micronutrients of my plant. Hello, brother Wade.
Hey Wade, good to see your face,
Hello.
man. Much love,
Yeah,
man.
dude. Wade's been in the
It's
hospital
it's nice
for,
to be here.
oh
I'm going to
my
go
God,
back to listening.
it's nice to see you. No problem. You're welcome here. Anytime you want to say something, you just throw your hand up and we'll love to have you. I'm talking about this little device. I was just telling Colin that I took a leaf off my plant and I basically was able to take the measurements of the macro and micronutrients of the plant right here. It's telling me exactly what the numbers are. It's just an unbelievable useful tool. I put in full melt bubble yesterday, poured it into the thing. It came back 67% THC. It was higher than all of the rosin. I had a gentleman in Holland who hit me up the other day, told me that he feels that this device is more accurate than the EU GMP lab that he's using. This is what he said concerning the Valenveras. We validated it for cannabinoid compared to our Euro EU GMP lab. Valenveras is actually better and more reliable in my very humble opinion. We can now run much more samples, and so we can do research with increased data resolution. Ruben is not getting this device back. That's all I'm saying. And that was Inexo BV, INNEXO BV. That's Dom. You can check them out on IG. So it's nice to hear other people who are in the science. I just can't believe how convenient this is. I'm taking it tomorrow to go visit Issam and Justin, who came and hung out with us from Canara. I'll be in Montreal later today, dude, just over the border from you.
That's super cool. Yeah, so I 2 years ago I approached medicinal genomics with this same ideology. I was like, "Hey guys, I don't know, what you know about the assays, but I do know that I don't know enough about the mycorrhizal that's happening in the soil biome, and I don't know enough about how all this interplays with one another in terms of data." So
Mm-hmm.
they figured out a way to be able to test that and put that within the sequencing protocols, right? And that opened up this unlocked, at least for me, this new understanding of what's possible in terms of the just the microbiome in general, and how that interplays with another in feeding schedules, or what is the plant uptaking in terms of living soil, and what is there and how is it doing it. This cuts driving time out, testing time. It cuts out all the stuff that I asked for and had to do all this work to then get it to a lab, but then they had to do all this work to get me that data back. This is
It
so
just didn't
immediate and really
exist. It
cool.
just didn't exist. You know, Ruben
Yeah,
has 3 degrees in engineering to
I
have
bet.
put his, yeah, he's got an agricultural degree and an electronics degree. So
Yeah.
he's a real, he got 2 at the University of Barcelona, engineering degrees, and he got 1
Yep.
at the University in Amsterdam. And
Yep.
so he's definitely put an enormous amount of work into this little unit. Now, this unit is not his unit. Neospectra
Hmm.
is a unit that exists. It's one of the higher end NIH. What Ruben did was he programmed this for cannabis. He put on all the data, all of the, he's working right now with SC Labs. They're about to do a big project with Alec down at SC Labs that
Nice.
he may or may not come and tell us a little bit about later. But yeah, I just can't say enough about this unit, dude. It's so easy. It validates so quickly. We were
Yeah.
within under 1% of testing against GC and gas chromatographs, so it surprised me to say the least.
Yeah, that's impressive, man. I mean, it's as if, just needed to wait a little bit for this guy to come along. But it's interesting, he's taking existing technology and greasing the wheel of it, which is the most brilliant thing you could do, because it'd take him so long to get to that place of what he's doing today to start it over. So it's really,
Totally.
really smart. And yeah, it's almost as if he's porting assays over to a new a new device in a sense.
Yeah.
It's really, really brilliant. It's really,
The
really
full the full melt bubble that I tested from John Hatch, which is all just this beautiful, beautiful, perfectly grown and perfectly made bubble hash. It was coming in just under 70, around 67, 68, but all of the rosins that we tested, only one came like zero point 0.3 higher than the bubble. Everyone else's rosin was coming in terpene and cannabinoid content below the full melt bubble. And it really showed me that most people's rosin is mediocre bubble that they've pressed. It's not like it's made, if it's a 5 star, you're lucky. I'll put that a little above mediocre, but anything four and below, I'm kind of like four and below is like, and I don't say mediocre to be insulting. I just say it's not exceptional. It's just in the
yeah,
middle. Maybe should call it middle. Maybe that's a little less judgmental and a little less harsh when I say that because, I'm obviously I don't forget that our utopian minds, Colin, are not what everyone else wants or thinks like. And I'll never forget Irv Rosenfeld smoking those shitty government Mississippi stalks ground into them weed. And we're all like, we're gonna get you better weed, and don't worry, Irv. And he was just like, guys, I love this herb. This is perfect for me. And we were just like, but you can't love that herb. Like you have to get the best. And it's just a weird ego problem, I guess, when you just think that you A, have the best and B, want everyone to have the best. How about this? How about we all just give everyone access and they can choose what they want? That
totally.
sounds like a working proposition that I could get behind. Holy
100. Yeah.
shit.
No,
We spend
it's
a,
hard. You're
it's
pointing
hard.
out it's like, you forget sometimes, and I think you and I are more cognitive than we've ever been about, where this all falls within everyone's lives. Like what access do they have and what does that mean in terms of access for them? Some people it just means getting access to cannabis, like in any form possible. And some it's
Right.
a particular version of it, right? And I think there's no wrong in that. To your point, like someone yesterday, or not yesterday, on Thursday, gave me a bag of ground material and was like, dude, I smoked this all day. And I'm like, oh, brother, in my head, right? But then I was like, you know what? This is kind of awesome that this guy's so stoked to share this bag with me, and he gave it to me. He's like, I need you to try this. I haven't even tried it yet, but I will. Because he was just so adamant about it. But everyone's access point, I think, is their own journey in and of itself. So that's, I think time is and education brings us to the place of individual choices that go beyond the initial I have access, but that's just time. I really chalk that up to once you get in the door, you're now just, searching through the dark room until you touch the object that you feel good with. And then all of a
Hmm.
sudden you turn the lights on, you're like, oh yeah, that I like that. So there's the access point in cannabis to me is I think with everyone, it's really varying in terms of what quality level you might have access to. Because now that we have regulation, someone on another episode said, back in the day, every gram mattered, and I think because of that, quality kind of was a little bit more easier to find in that respect. Because it was, people were the growers at the time were like, it has to be the best because you just don't have as
Hmm.
much of it, and we have to get the best dollar per gram for it.
Yeah.
Um, and I think there's, with craft cannabis, we're having some of that kind of come back to the industry. But the consumers have to choose that, it's because there's so many choices. So I encourage those that are looking for that type of experience to support craft farmers, if you can do that. But on the flip side, if you need that, that whatever cost structure, maybe there's another brand out there that speaks better, louder to you, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's, I think it's important for people to think about those things for themselves because it's often too easy to be like, well, the price is better on this version of sour diesel versus that one. And then they don't know and understand how to differentiate that in terms of
Or
what's
that
good for them.
one sour diesel and one totally isn't.
Yeah, well, that's
Dude,
where we
this one that isn't sour diesel is so much cheaper.
I know, yeah, or in some cases, it was, maybe it was grown better, right?
Yeah.
And it may not be sour diesel and it needs its own name, right?
Hmm. It's true. I'm about to hit this Sunday driver. I just scooped it off. It was so greased out. I love when
I
hash
gotta
looks
go.
like this.
I
It's
gotta go
not
get my
bad,
jar.
dude.
I
Go
brought
get your
them.
jar, brother.
I'll be back. I'd love to hear from Wade. How you doing, brother?
Wade is happy to be here.
Can you guys hear me?
We sure can.
Well, I am on day 12 of being in the hospital down in Sacramento. I'm at the University of California Davis Cancer Center, which is a world renowned cancer research facility. I was originally admitted here 12 days ago in hopes that they could come up with a pain management plan. And they have. What's really lovely is the first week I was here was very challenging. They were trying to get me off of the pain meds that I had been using that were not very helpful. And meantime, trying to find versions of pain medications that would be effective and allow me to still function. And I apologize for my tears. There's a mixture of
Never.
sadness and joy in this because I can relate. I can report over the last 5 days. I think we found the combination of non-opioid medications that allowed me to wake up this morning relatively free of pain. And I and I think most people who experience pain don't like talking about it because it's no fun to describe and you can't really know it if you haven't lived it. Um, so yeah, um, the other thing that was happening is the deal that I made with these folks is they were going to work to see if we couldn't get my pain in hand, and they have. I have for years used a meditation technique called a pain body, where I would create another body for myself that could sit over there, where I could witness what he was experiencing without getting caught too deeply in it. And it's an effective technique. It just requires constant attention. You just focus on, yeah, there's the pain body. Look at that. Isn't that interesting how that pain is moving around and it's a freeing exercise from the if you I'm sorry, what?
Well, I
Anyway,
think Ryan just came in accidentally with his mic on, but continue, Wade, please.
yes. Um, so yeah, about 5 or 6 days ago, I think we tumbled upon the unique combination of, I mean, there's like 6 or 7 different drugs that they've put together for me into a cocktail. Everything from ketamine to Dilaudid to a number of medications I've never heard of.
Hmm.
But 5 days ago, for the first time since I got into the hospital, I slept through the night. I mean, nurses woke me up to give me medications and whatnot, but I actually slept through the night and I woke up in the morning for, for the first time in 4 years or more. I woke up relatively free of pain, not having to do my meditation. And all of this, it must sound like I'm really distressed or upset or bothered. I think what's going on for me is I've recognized that I was reluctant to ask for help at many junctures when help would have been appropriate. And I've now come to the realization that yeah, I'm sick. Seems like an obvious thing to say, but what that really means is it means that my capabilities, my my opportunities to contribute to my life and to those around me has been pretty severely curtailed. And and over the last 2 weeks, as we gotten my pain things straightened out, the rapid heart rate is in hand. Shortness of breath seems to be in hand. A lot of things have kind of come together to support. And I will say that when I checked into this hospital, I'd pretty much given up. I said, I'm tired of fighting. I'm especially tired of fighting with drugs that do more harm than good because we don't really know what's right for my case. But now that I've been here, I feel like, in addition to getting the pain thing in order, they actually have found an anti-cancer drug. It's not a chemotherapy drug. It's a let me see if I can get this terminology right. Modified monoclonal antibodies, and specifically the ones that they're giving me. I've had 3 injections of these things in the last week. Each injection stronger than the previous, and then they wait 48 hours to see if it's going to kill me or help me, and it seems to be helping. I I've talked to a number of friends who, in the last few days, have commented how much different my voice sounds and how energetic I sound and feel, and that's really the case for me. Um, and yeah, I have hope again. And I'm being realistic here. I know that the chances of the current regimen actually stopping my cancer or curing it, quote unquote, is virtually nil. There's not much chance of that. The myeloma is a very adaptable form of cancer. And so inevitably over time, it finds a way to work its way around whatever we're doing to slow its progression. But I am promised that I get out of the hospital today. And when I get home, I'll be able to take up my cannabis medications again. And it'll be fun to see how cannabis and the synergy that I'm aware of there works with the medications that they put me on. And they're being very helpful. They're really insisting they want to help me. They want me to be coming back down here for my care. And I'm very I don't like the long drive, but I really love that there is a world-class cancer facility close by me. And for whatever reason, a lot of the nurses and doctors here, like I encouraged some of them to Google my name, and evidently they were impressed. I've actually had the nursing educator ask me if I would be willing to do classes here. So, of course, I said yes. Anyway, that's a very teary, long winded way of saying Wade's had a rough couple of weeks, like a cherry on top of a rough year. But I'm getting to eat the dessert now. I feel like I'm doing better. I'm really looking forward to being home, being on the farm again. I realized that one of the challenges for me is I've been in this hospital now 12 days. I have not had a breath of fresh air in 12 days. When I was in the Navy, I kind of got used to canned air. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to being home and being able to get out on my farm and look at the pond and the animals. And oh boy. Anyway, You all will be seeing more of me. It is my intention and hope to be able to contribute to Hash Church again on a more regular basis. I feel like between Hash Church and Veterans Action Council, you all are my community now. You're the you're my contact with the world. And I want to stay in touch with the world. I feel like I have more to offer to our community. And a lot of what I'm experiencing it as grace, as me having the opportunity to really dig deep on what is surrender? What does
Wade,
it mean to surrender to one's life and condition?
well, Wade, for so long you've been the caretaker, and now it's time for you to be the one that's being cared for. And that's a hard transition to make because it's a shift in identity, right? But
Well said, Ryan.
I
Yes.
also have to say, like watching you share over the last 6 months and more, you continue to teach us with this incredible humility. You, this is not something that I don't think I've ever seen anywhere before. The raw honesty of your journey and your courage and um it's it's really it's a beautiful thing, and I'm trying to find the beauty in this incredibly immensely tough thing that you're going through, but in the honesty and the rawness and that you're sharing it with the world. I mean, it's really, wait, it's something else. I don't really have the words to put my emotions out there. Um, but it's a beautiful thing, and I see how strong you are, and I know that this probably pulls on the heartstrings of everybody else in the chat like it pulls on mine. Um, but this is not something that you see. This is not a part of life that I think even people that are going through it personally with family members, a lot of this stuff just isn't discussed. And I think that you continue to be a role model for us in this community. And I just want to say thank you, and that I see your courage, and I love you very much.
Thank you, Ryan. Oh.
Brother Wade, take a deep breath. You're here.
Hello, Etienne.
You're still with us, and
Yeah,
that's all that matters.
yeah.
We're here for you in every way. I have to reflect exactly what Ryan stated. Most people who are watching this, I'm gonna guess, are pretty young. We're not used to looking or dealing with the end phase of life. It's usually something that's very sudden. Your brave honesty is something that touches all of us because we're all going to go through this in one way, shape, or form. And you are our guide currently because of what you're going through. Um, you have elevated the issue for us all to understand our humility as well as our humanity, as we will eventually be there in our own way. And you are showing us how to do so with beauty, courage, strength,
Grace.
and beyond grace. I
Yeah.
mean, that's connected to the honesty that you're sharing with us, which nobody shares. These are things that are hidden. So thank you for exposing us to the uncomfortableness, as uncomfortable as it is. Thank you for lifting us up with you, for we will lift you up with us. And I love you.
Yeah, you continue to teach, Wade. It's remarkable beyond words.
It is very powerful. I had a whole bunch of stuff I wanted to say, but this is what I'm going to say, Wade. You are enough. You are enough. You have nothing left to prove. You don't have to try to you already are, and you may feel that you've shifted and that you're not helping people as much as you thought you were. but I think that might be in your perception only because for the rest of us, we feel that you're helping kind of us more than ever. And it's really powerful, man. It's heavy duty. You're taking us on a journey that, like Ryan said, most people keep behind locked doors. They don't want to share it. We're all heading to the same place. You know, the journey that we take to get there, maybe some will have more pain, some will have less pain. I don't know why that is. I don't know why young children have to suffer. I don't understand it, but I do know that watching you move through it with grace is important to the community, to the I mean, I hope you go back on these shows and you read the chat because it's been nonstop. Wade, Wade. Someone just coined the term Wade over evil instead of Ja over evil. So now they're using your name Wade like Ja. So it's like I was like, Wade is the way. Wade is the way.
And it
So
says
give
Wade's
thanks.
way.
Wade's way. Yeah, dude. It's
Thank
powerful,
you.
powerful.
Yeah,
No, thank you.
thank you. And you're I don't have much to add here other than you're showing everyone how to show up. And that's really important and really, really special.
Well, as I said earlier, I have missed being able to be on the show with y'all, and I'm really looking forward to having more opportunities to be here with you all because I do feel like my strength is coming back. I'm no longer giving up. I'm going to fight some more. Not happy about it, but life is too precious to give up just because you're in pain. And one of the nurses told me there's a thing here where you, something along the lines of ask for what you want and take what you get. Um, and I think that's been the lesson for me. Many of you made reference to how difficult these kind of conversations are for most people. And I don't know. I feel like, oh, well, I'm going to stop there. I feel deeply loved by each of you, and um, oh, yeah, I, um, I look forward to some lighthearted, fun conversation today. Um, but yeah, I want to close by saying, yeah, I feel good. I feel able again. I feel willing to engage. I'm not giving up.
There's a lot,
And
there's a lot to be said for that,
I
Wade.
really appreciate uh, this group of people and the way in which we relate to each other. It's a lot, it's a gift. So I'm going to mute and go back to doing my favorite thing, which is listening to brilliant people talk about cannabis. I love you guys.
Awesome, Wade. Very, very powerful stuff. I did want to tell you one thing, Wade. I have discovered this artist recently named Ren. And he's in his 30s. He's from the UK. This guy's been sick for half his life. He suffered from autoimmune disease. He suffered from psychosis, a lot of mental health issues, but he wrote a song called Hi Ren. And it's this division of his positive and negative. He's got this darkness and this light that swings back and forth like a pendulum. And, for 2 years, he laid on a bed as a 20-year-old kid and he couldn't move. And it drove him fucking batshit crazy. And he came out of it with this beautiful, powerful song. And it might be a little dark, but it ends with such a powerful I can't even explain it. I've watched it 50 times. There's a bunch of people who react to this video, and it's just to understand anyone that has never seen this song, it is performed live in one take. It's 9 minutes long. He plays it on the acoustic guitar. It is so powerful, Wade. I think that if you can watch it for 9 minutes and get to the end of it and hear You know, he says a line in that movie because, or in that song, because prior to the line, the gentleman who he's singing as is almost like the devil, and he's singing like, I'm Mephistopheles, I'm the chaos and the division, and he's going through all of this negative, and then at one point he says, you know, I also go by many names. Some people know me as Hope. And when you said earlier that you had hope, I want you to listen to this song. I swear to God, it's going to make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. I think it's going to give you energy. And anyone that's watching this, that's going through any difficult situation right now, Ren puts this mental health situation into words and music in a way that I have never heard in my life. It is so fucking powerful. In the meantime, I very much want to welcome Dr. Mark Chaldon, our resident chemist, to the room, Dr. David Allen, our resident MD, Etienne Fontaine, our resident badass, fatty, smoking, bald ass motherfucker killer, and Ryan Lee as well. And then I want to welcome and Dutch Blooms, who just popped into the room as I'm doing introductions. But I do want to introduce you guys to my new friend Storm from South Africa, from the House of Extractions. And yes, Storm knows of Myrtle. Etienne, as you introduced me to Myrtle this recent March in Barcelona. But yeah, I just met Storm recently. He's in South Africa, and I thought maybe it would be nice to have him come in, tell us a little bit about what's going on in South Africa, and introduce himself and tell us a little bit about the House of Extraction. I called this guy on Instagram out of the total blue and completely threw him for a loop. It was awesome. I love doing that. So, how you doing, Storm?
How's it, Marcus? Yeah, no, doing very well. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be here.
You're representing South Africa for us, brother. Tell us how things are going. Tell us about the House of Extraction.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the things in South Africa, legally speaking, started changing in about 2017. Medically, like medical is full legal, but and then it's full legal for cultivation, but not for distribution. It's complicated. So it all gets exported. And then the unlicensed market, the home growers and the larger cultivators are free to cultivate under the privacy of their own home, but not, and to consume, but not legally allowed to sell or trade. So the members club model is sort of what's prevalent, kind of similar to Spain. We've sort of followed that kind of thing. And as a result, I've sort of been carving my own way, trying to make a legal business model. And so I'm a service provider for cultivators or members clubs who are looking to convert their harvest into whatever extract. Typically, I used to work with BHO and stuff, but these days we are full focused on the solventless hash washing and rosin pressing and all of that. So yeah, that's what we do. I work very closely with an education institute called Chiba Africa. So we educate people on cultivating as well as extraction and everything in between. We just try. The big problem in South Africa is education, just across the board, not just with cannabis, but then with cannabis specifically. So yeah, that's me.
That's awesome. Well, listen, South Africa, send all the positive vibes from South Africa to our brother Wade Laughter, who's just finishing up some days in the hospital. He's been fighting cancer. He's in the room with us today. We want love from all over the world being sent to Wade. And I don't know, Wade, if you have an email address or a contact information that you would like people to send messages. I don't know if that would bring you joy to hear from people from around the world, but we certainly have enough of them watching at any given time, and I'm sure more than a few of them would be happy to send an email your way with some positive affirmations.
I would be comfortable if you are open to sharing the email you have for me. I don't know that I want to give my email out right here in church full blast.
then people can
I
reach
don't
out
really
to
have a
me.
sense of what's the right thing, Marcus.
Yeah, well, I think what you feel in your heart is the right thing. And what you just said sounds like the right thing to me. So anyone that wants to send a lovely message to Wade, you can reach out to me at bcbubbleman@icloud.com, and I'll forward you Mr. Laughter's email, and you'll be able to send him some positive affirmations. And then please let him know where you're from. I'd love to see some different countries representing. It's a big world out there, and I know that Wade has you know, left a pretty good mark on it so far. So let's
Yeah,
continue that journey.
let people should let Wade know too how they are inspired by him and how he's touched them. And also keep in mind, maybe don't expect a response, right? Because these can be quite overwhelming, and replying to a lot of emails can be a lot too. So, you know,
Yeah,
don't
I
be
think that's
offended.
well said.
Yeah, don't be
Don't
offended
expect a response.
because it can be overwhelming, and his energy is precious. So we
Yeah.
all want to protect that.
Yeah.
It's
No,
good to be
absolutely.
back, Wade. It really is.
I uh I don't it doesn't work out well for me when I forget to reply to an email. It's people will be like, "Hey Bubble Man, you're so inspiring. You've totally inspired me." They'll be all positive and I'll be like, I'll read it, but I'll be like, "Oh, I got to reply to that later." And then I'll forget. Like 3 days later, it'll be like, "You know what, Bubble Man? Fuck you. I opened my heart to you and you can't even reply." And I'll just be like, "Oh shit." And then of course I'm like, "Oh my God, this person's gonna feel so bad when I actually reply and tell them what happened." And that's how it goes every time. They're like, "I'm so sorry, man. I didn't mean it. I'm having a bad day." I'm like, "Dude, I know. We're all having a bad day. It's okay. I can take the odd fuck you here and there if it's followed by a quick apology. I'm very good like that. I get an apology, I feel better about it. If you tell me to
In,
fuck
in,
you and you don't, then I'm hurt."
it was either 2000 or 2001. I was at a cannabis cup, and at the end of when the Milkway would close, the people would usually end up at the Dolphins down the road because they took
Mm.
their 7 days or 24 hours that you can have per year in the cup week. So it kind of became the after party place. And I ended up there one night and sitting at a table with Ariane. And Ariane is just absolutely peaked on mushrooms, like he's as high as you could possibly be. And someone came up to him and had clearly seen him in a High Times magazine and just wanted to have this moment with Ariane, telling him how cool he was. And Ariane was so lit that he couldn't even speak. He couldn't even get out a reply. And this guy took it really personally in real time. I watched exactly what you said, Marcus, unfold with Ariane, and it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I never felt so bad for someone on mushrooms.
Sometimes you can't win. Sometimes you can't win. And you know what? Sometimes you're not supposed to win. So that's okay as well. Something I'm learning as I get older, and I did learn this from Marcus Aurelius's book, which is if you don't want to be annoyed in the world, then don't have an opinion on that thing. All you have to do is remove your opinion about a certain thing and it won't bug you anymore. Like
Well,
if there's something that's, what's
it's pers-
that?
it's perspective, right? And you know, we can have the wrong perspective as people. Like our perspective isn't always right,
No.
right? And that's an important lesson to learn in life. Because we often get offended by things that aren't intended as offense. And like Ariane peeking out on mushrooms, he wasn't being rude at all. He was just trying to survive, right?
He was in survival mode. That's pretty funny, dude. That is pretty funny. I actually am flying to Montreal today in a couple of hours, and in about 15 minutes, I'm going to shift and I'm going to come into this chat room on my phone. This box is going to be empty probably for the rest of church, just on my thing. I'll probably put it on. I don't know if I'll put it on gallery view or speaker view. Whatever one I put it on, it's going to stay on for the whole rest of church. And my wife is going to come in after she drops me and Ruben Valenveras at the airport because he's going to the Grow Op in Toronto. And I'm going to meet Isan and Justin from Canera, who came into Hash Church a couple of weeks ago from that big giant facility. So, yeah, this is the epitome of my madness. I'm going to leave in about 15 minutes and I'm going to drive to the airport and I'll just be on my phone doing church from my phone. And then my wife's going to be such an angel. My wife is the most angelic person ever. She's going to shut Hash Church down so everything gets preserved and recorded and saved so it can go up on the podcast. How the hell are you doing, Dutch? What's going on? Like Minnesota, Minneapolis? Where are you at again? Oh, is he like a picture?
Yeah, they're the same
Oh,
place.
there he is. They're the same
What's
place.
up,
They're
dude?
the same place. I'm good, man. How is life? How is life in Minnesota?
It's good. It's warming up. The ever wait for the licenses. It's a new state, and they're just doing all the usual things. But I have a little battle worn approach to it, where some of these folks are just
A little frozen.
Yeah, he's
they're just gonna fuck it up. Who's within there and.
They're just gonna fuck it up. What I like to tell them is right away, you just say, listen, I just want to let you know, I'm a lifer. You're going to be working in a completely different sector, and I'm still going to be here. So just keep that in mind when you're creating these regulations that gatekeep people like me who are in this for life. Why is cannabis being gatekept by people who aren't in cannabis? Why is that? I have no understanding of that whatsoever. Why
You
do
know
they
what's
care?
also interesting is like, so I'm new to Minnesota. Minnesota's new to coming into recreational weed. And so people are coming out of the closet, and I keep meeting these people that are introducing themselves. Hey, I'm a breeder. Do you know what a breeder is? I make seeds, and they're telling me, and I'm like, it's kind of weird. Like, yeah, man, I am too. That's what I've been doing for the last 15 years, on an acre. But it's, there's part of my ego that comes out like in that, and then I sit back and I've observed it. Like a lot of people are telling me this, and I'm realizing the influence of of the shows that have been going on, the influence of the cannabis scene overall has been influencing people, and people are going after their dreams. You know what I mean? And so now they're here, and the market's coming, and they're there to represent themselves and say, hey, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm doing. And I don't know, it's really cool, so it's like kind of this weird where my ego comes up, like, I'm Dutch Blooms. I hear Minnesota now, my deer's fire. Like, when in reality, these folks are just passionate about weed. They've been doing it in the shadows for a long time, and are ready for their moment, so it's fucking beautiful. I hope the best for everybody. Minnesota has a very similar program to New York, where they have the micro license, which is really cool. And until recently, it was supposed to be a 10% excise tax, which is a pretty good rate. But they just voted to bump it up another 5%, which is unfortunate. But the lay of the land in Minnesota, it's kind of a state full of a lot of small towns, and so I think that, like, the way you set it up, you could kind of be that, where you have 8 lights in your shop, 20 lights, whatever, and you could have a retail micro, and not even like a store where people are coming in, but your buddies could call you and come over and buy legal weed. You could pay your taxes and do all the things. And so it's kind of cool, just because people are spread out. There's these smaller communities. People are kind of already established. I'm seeing this different way of how it could come out. We'll see. There still is the big companies that are fighting to come in. They've given a lot of leeway to the medical. So we're in mid license. Like, we made our application. They haven't licensed a single person or business, and they're kind of changing the rules, which is really frustrating, right? Because you would maybe change which license you applied for if you knew that the medical combo license was going to be allowed to do everything, and have unlimited canopy. So there's some weird things as usual, but it's rolling out. I was excited.
Well, good to hear.
A couple
Good
weeks
to hear
ago,
from you.
I
Good
was
to
in.
see you.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was excited a couple weeks ago. I was in New York for the New York Craft Pharma thing with Colin, and it was so cool to see how the craft farmers there are rolling out. Like, the market is good. Some folks are producing some really fucking fire weed, and it's getting bought up at like a really fair price. Like, I was really fucking stoked, and Colin's nodding his head. Like, he's in the trenches, but it was not just him. It was a bunch of people. I got to see a couple cool greenhouse, and And I met some retailers, I met some processors. There was at the event there was a ton of people with clones. I didn't expect that, but there was probably 7 tables of clones and genetics, and there was strawberry cough and piff and new and blue zushi, and like there was kind of a range of all the cool shit, and it's a cool scene.
Yeah, Dutch, she did a nice job on the panel. We did a breeders panel with a bunch of the local farms throughout the state, and then we brought Dutch in to talk about regenerative and all the farms on the panel are regenerative practices, and it was cool. It was really neat to see everybody kind of come together and talk about the things that they've learned through the journey that they've had, and it was nice. And the breeders panel was great. We had Fang from Gage Green come on, who I think was, was really educational for those that were there. So it was
That's
cool to have you
awesome.
out, man. Yeah.
And it's
Thanks for
it's
coming
kind
on.
of interesting, like each market, even though the market as a whole, internationally is growing and becoming more and more educated. Each market kind of has to go through its own growth phase. Like
Mhm.
there wasn't a whole lot this event. I was surprised, kind of because of what's going on in the market now. The money is still good for flower, and so they're all moving flower and they're all smoking flower. Not to say there aren't awesome hash companies. I know there are. It just was my observation. There wasn't a ton of hash yet. I imagine next year it'll be full of hash.
Yeah, I think
I
it's because of
imagine
the
so
square
as
footage.
well.
Square footage, man. That's really what it comes down to. And then most of it's outdoor that's not passing. So when that happens, you're limited to what you can make with it, you know? So most of it went to distillate and continues to do that because of the environment. It's really once the more greenhouses come online, I think that's when it'll change. But I still think most of that's going to stay within, very small square, called 100 miles, 500-mile radius, you know? Um, New York's a big state, you know, it's huge.
Yeah, I've been going to a couple events these last few days as well with Ruben in from Barcelona. We went to the book club the other day, super mellow, just did a bunch of testing, tested a bunch of different people's rosin. I was impressed that John's bubble hash, John Hatch, he his bubble hash scored higher than almost all the rosin. There was only one rosin that had higher numbers than his full melt 6-star bubble. And it really just goes to show you that like nothing is competing with 6-star. It is le top. This shit shined like diamonds when you moved it. Every time I opened the jar and put the flashlight on it, people would just be like, "Oh wow." In fact, a funny experience happened. I was sitting with a couple of reps for this company called Green Mile. It's a cannabis company. And we tested a couple of their cultivars. They had a Pakistani and another one I can't remember. I'd have to go back and look. And there was another young guy. He was an artist. He was in his 20, young 20-year-old guy. And he sat next to us. And they had their puff. He had his Puffco. I had a couple Puffcos on the table. And I was like, you know what? I want these guys to smoke some full melt. And there was like 4 of us, so I poured out enough hash for like 4 people to get a nice dab, and I roll it in my hand really quickly. It just turns to caramel, and I'm like, you know what? I want this guy to have the full experience. I want him to feel the actual texture of the hash and how it feels. And he was like, oh wow, you can't do that with rosin, and he was holding it and rolling it, and touching it a little bit. Well, I stopped paying attention for half a second, and Ruben asked me a question, and I leaned over to him. And I kind of hear the 20-year-old guy say something like, "Oh, can I put some in my Puffco?" And that's what I wanted. I wanted everyone. So he put the entire thing in his 3D XL Puffco, like 4 big dabs of full melt 6-star bubble. And then, awesomely enough, he passed it to one of the reps from Green Mile. So he didn't even hit it. He wasn't being like greedy or anything. And he gave this fucking guy from Green Mile such an amazing experience. I mean, the guy was gone for 15 minutes. It took him 15 minutes to come back, and he didn't pass out. He didn't like turn too white, and he didn't leave the table. He didn't like jump out of his skin. Although I will say, I did hear someone might have passed out later in the evening after we left, and there was an issue with not calling the hospital or the ambulance, and I heard someone fell and hit their head, and I'm praying that it wasn't this guy. But he got really, I mean, dude, I don't even take hits of bubble like that. I don't take like four giant rips and put it in the thing and just take that first king's hit. But it was quite something, man. He couldn't even open his eyes for, I'd say, like 3 to 4 minutes. He would try to open his eyes and they were just like fluttering. Like he just had to close his eyes. Like, do you know how good of a hit that is when you have to close your eyes? Let me tell you, and it wasn't just two, I often said 2 thumbs up for 2 tiers down. This guy had many, many tiers. This was many more than the 2 tiers experience. It kind of makes me want to bring the Trichome Challenge back. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with Adam Dunn's Trichome Challenge that he used to do in Amsterdam. But he'd have this big, long, like 2 or 3 foot glass bong and he would get like strong trichomes. Keep in mind, he was friends with Rob and Dave back even back then in the mid 90s. So they were having an influence on him. So I'm not sure the trichomes were ever Dave Watson level, but still like a whole big bowl of trikes that you have to sit in this chair, suck this huge bong rip into your lungs, and then Adam stands next to you. Oh, and by the way, there's a video camera on the bottom of the bong, and it's videoing your whole reaction to you taking this bong rip. We talked about it on someone's podcast recently, but yeah, it was quite an experience, the Trichome Challenge. I think it might have a place in the near future once vapor lounges are more secure and there's good. I did go also to the Dank Club, which is where that guy got super high on the bubble. And then I went to Jody Emery, or Jody Ramgizi now, sorry, she's got her old name back. I went to her event. Her Fair Cannabis event was happening at the Cannabis Culture Vapor Lounge in downtown Vancouver. So we went and set up our thing there. It was really awesome to see all these old friends that I hadn't. I saw Jeff Tech from Afghan Bull Rider. I haven't seen him in over 10 years. He was married to, of course, the cannabis activist Michelle Rainey, who was one of the BC3 that was arrested by the DEA with Mark Emery and Greg Williams. I saw Dana Larson, who runs the mushrooms and coca shops in Vancouver now. He was Mark Emery's partner back in the day and one of the editors for Cannabis Culture magazine. Just awesome dude doing awesome, incredible activism work still to this day, just pushing the ultimate boundary of civil disobedience to the highest level. And I will say, in everything everyone did, it seems as though nothing was more effective for legalization or pseudo legalization than civil disobedience. I didn't see anything else. I mean, definitely little kids having hundreds of seizures a day and then just not having a seizure for 11 days off a drop of oil. That was definitely like a strong nudge in prohibition's side. They had a hard time. Okay, who wants to stand up and argue that? Like, my kid's having 800 seizures a day. Would you like to tell him why and he's taken every fucking poisonous medication you've ever given him, medication for Parkinson's disease, medications for colon cancer. Like, they just throw the kitchen sink at these kids. So it's like, why can't they have an oil? So I don't know where exactly I was going with that, but in a very short period of time, I've got to go to the airport. So I'm going to shift over to my phone. And I hope while I'm doing that, that some of you can potentially pick up the conversation. I'll be listening. I'll try to drive the conversation. But if anyone has anything they want to share, I mean, I'd love to hear more about South Africa, Storm. Honestly, I don't know what else is going on there, but I'm sure there's quite a bit going on there. And Ruben keeps telling me I got to go to South Africa and that there's this huge extract world going down. He says, "Yo, there's a lot of work for you in South Africa, and maybe one day I'll make it down there and we can make some hash together."
Yeah, absolutely, man. We actually work with Valenveris.
Yeah.
They work with the school that I work at like that I work with, like
Chiba.
so. Yeah, Chiba. Yeah. So yeah, you must pull in.
Absolutely. I'll bring my Valenvera. I'm telling you, this little scanner thing, Mark, Dr. Mark, you would love this little thing, this NIH scanning device that Valenveras has. It is so cool, dude. We were validating within 1%, less than 1% of the numbers that the lab reports had. And it just happened so fast. And it was like in the most non-lab setting that you could possibly imagine. The thing that freaked me out about this tool is, generally I find things like this, and definitely things like what Dr. Mark does, is you have to have an extremely high level of awareness and an extremely high level of understanding and executing the SOPs and the order of what's supposed to be happening properly, because if you miss something, you can fuck the whole thing up. But what I noticed with this thing was that, like, I feel like I could train my 10-year-old son to operate it. Like
Yeah, it's very, very.
it's very simple.
What is it?
It's a little Neo Spectra scanner. It's called. It's like an NIH scanner. So it's my friend Ruben has he's got a bunch of engineering degrees, and he's basically programmed this thing for cannabis. He's doing some work with SC Labs. I'm not sure exactly how much they're talking about it, but I know they're starting a big project together. They're going to be doing something with this. I was surprised. It's kind of like Gemisert, Orange Photon, all of these different sort of portable lab systems. But I guess what it is it's one that's gotten like I think we're in this part now, Dr. Mark. You know what I mean? Like I think we were here, and I think we're now like in the hockey stick. Like it is going, the quality and the caliber. You know what happens with technology? I remember my first MP3, two Bob Marley songs. That's it. Now an MP3 player could hold like 10 million songs.
So it's a near IR scanner. Is that what it is?
Yeah, NIH scanner.
What does NIH stand for?
I don't want to make a mistake and sound like an idiot, so I might call Ruben over. Hey, Ruben, you want to come tell Dr. Mark about this device? Throw those in your ears.
Oh,
Should be good. All right. There you go, brother. Have a seat.
Hey, hello everyone. How's it going?
Can you hear them?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, perfect. So Dr. Mark wants to know about this little unit, and if you haven't met Dr. Mark, please meet him now. He's awesome. There's your unit. That's him right there.
nice to meet you, Ruben.
Nice to meet you. You're doing.
Tell
So what does this little device do?
So this is an NIR, near infrared spectroscopy. It's actually
Yeah,
using
near
light.
IR. Okay.
Yeah, a spectrometer.
So it's
you-
NIR, not NIH.
Exactly, NIR. Yes. So good. So yeah, usually we used to work with pencil units like the Brooker one or the Thermo Fisher one, which usually is a big device. It is not that portable and actually really way more expensive. And yeah, we were really lucky to partner with Sour and just start playing with this small tool. Even being portable, I think is like a new step in this kind of technology. And what I really like is I think we empower, no, all of us, we can empower ourselves, being able to have these kind of technologies, being able to let us know what we consume, if it's cannabis, if it's mushrooms, or even what we consume at the end. I think I would really like to see this unit one day here, which I think is gonna be. And then imagine you being able to go to the supermarket and being able to choose the proper oranges according to the level of vitamin C you want or any other product you want to consume. So yeah, we're really happy to be able to provide this tool. Actually, we've been facing that the plant tissue analysis changing a lot the way that the producers are producing cannabis. Mainly, you are able to analyze the nutrient intake of the plants with the macro and micronutrients, and that is changing the industry. And yeah, really happy to be able to travel around the world. So happy to be able to stay a few days here with Bubbleman and having fun around, and looking forward to see how it's gonna be grow up and see how the evolution of this cannabis industry is going on here with all the experience you have in Canada, me coming from Barcelona, still in the gray area, and seeing how this is here and moving on. Still not in the best way, but really so happy to be here. And I think you should really appreciate as well having a regulation in your country. We still are struggling, and I feel so comfortable here having cannabis. Even we're gonna travel in a few hours, and I'm going with the cannabis in my pocket. For me, it's a bit like crazy. So
He's
happy.
like, where can we smoke at the airport? I'm like, right out front under the sign with the marijuana leaf. It says smoking area. This is where we will smoke. So yeah, he's pretty stoked. And you know Storm from South Africa. So
Oh,
he works with Chiba. Yeah, he
nice.
was just shouting out valid
Yeah,
beras.
So good. Say
yeah,
hello to
yeah.
Trenton on the team. I really love to project. I had a lot
I
of fun
will.
last year. It's a pity this year you didn't have the traditional in Cape Town. And it's gonna be, I think, next week in Johannesburg, which is a bit really
Yes.
next to the grow up. But how's it going there?
Yeah, it's going good. Yeah, we have the summit next weekend. It's gonna be it's gonna be big. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Sure, sure. I'm sure that Trenton and Chiba team will be bringing the unit as well. And
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was for me as well.
I've worked very closely with that unit. It's
Oh, really?
fantastic.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you. Thank you. This is something that I really love, especially like new countries or countries that are on their level up or they don't have that many tools, let's say, being able now to offer technologies that can actually easily be accessible. And what Chiba did, I think, is still in the way of being able to have a Chiba lab service in South Africa, which I love it,
yes,
no? Being able to,
yes,
yeah, anyone that want to know the potency, the terpenes, or the nutrients in their plants being able to analyze that quickly. Yeah, it's so good. I'm really looking
yeah,
forward to see the regulation
absolutely.
of the cannabis industry in all the other countries. And like the
Yes,
other day, I received from Pakistan, and then like it's really nice because people, especially new countries, are contacting us to see how they can have this technology.
yes,
And yeah, it's so. I think we are start terminating. No, this industry is ah, just starting. So let's see how it's gonna
yeah,
be. I'm so excited.
yeah. And Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana are both have both legalized now. There's things happening in Central African countries. So yeah, it's taking over.
It is. It is. It is. So it was NIR. No, I
I
know.
know I was making
It's
it. I
good.
knew
It's
it.
good. It's
I
good.
told Dr. Mark, I said, oh, I don't want to make a mistake and sound like an idiot. I was like, you already did. You sounded like an
No,
idiot 5 minutes
NIH
ago. A
NIH
bloody
means
kid.
something else. But
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
so this device of yours measures cannabinoid content. Is that it? Does it also measure terpenes or just cannabinoids?
Cannabinoids and terpenes in flowers. In extracts, still only potency, so only like the HPLC, but we are training. I think Marcus said something about SC Labs, and yeah, we're gonna be working with them. I cannot say how, but yeah, we're gonna be increasing our database as well with them. And the idea is to be able to feed the
Well,
system with many more samples in order to have as well this terpene profile in the extracts, which I think is gonna be easier for me. Usually it's really difficult with NIR to actually detect less than 1%, let's say 0.1%. And basically in terpenes, we have more, in extractions, we have more terpenes. So I hope it's going to be easier. Yeah, it's going to be easier. I know already. We are already working on the model.
yeah, well, let's hope your collaboration with SC Labs is to validate the precision and accuracy on these measurements, because if they're precise and they're accurate, yeah, it will be really useful, because we all know that, it takes a whole lot more in terms of having an HPLC or GC to do determinations. This looks like it's small enough that you can take it right into the field or right into the grow. So that's always really valuable. And I think where these things have kind of fallen down previously is that uh, there's a lot of material inside cannabis, right? And so if you're looking at near IR is where you're looking, and we call that the fingerprint region of the spectrum, because there are very characteristic absorbances there that are specifically for single molecules. But and certainly if you're looking at, say, aspirin inside a tablet and it's only a single active ingredient, and you're looking to say, okay, what's the level of aspirin in that tablet? A near IR measurement can be spot on correct with HPLC. Where near IR has problems is when there's multiple components in something. And see, that's the problem in cannabis, is that all the cannabinoids have different near IR fingerprint spectra, right? And so, like, where CBC's got a peak, maybe THC's got a different peak at a different wave number or different frequency. And so you could look at the intensity of those peaks and say, okay, in general, we have something called Beer's law in chemistry, which basically says that the amount of the material giving rise to that peak is that the peak intensity is directly proportional to the amount of that material that's in there. But at small concentrations, and that's the important thing with cannabis, like if you're trying to distinguish a cannabis cultivar from, say, hemp, just that arbitrary 0.3%. So can your machine tell the difference between 0.4 and 0.3 or 0.2 and 0.3? I think near IR starts to get a little noisy down towards that end of the concentration regime. So I think you can get good results on high numbers, but when the numbers get really, really small, there could be interferences from other components that are in there, like the CBD fingerprint could interfere with the THC fingerprint. So what you think is THC is actually CBD, or maybe the peaks are actually shouldered with each other. So
Yeah.
all this can be worked out because there's a lot of kind of, number crunching and taking the data and looking at, trends over different, if you do like a calibration curve with a standard amount of material in there, and what the relationship with peak height is and concentration, over that concentration regime, you can get probably a pretty good number. But I think at really low concentrations, you might start to lose some of your precision and accuracy. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, you are right. Let me tell you, that's one of the important points, and this is a bit of a secret that I'm gonna share here in the program. And you are super right, Dr. Mark, in what you are saying. We call it bundles. That is when you have the bundle. So the vibration of this component is related with more or less the same window that we see the vibration or the absorption in another one, and that could be actually just mixing up. And this is why we have a lot of samples. And this is like a system that you actually need to train, and being able to do it. So I'll share it on, or actually I encourage you to enter Valenberto's website, and you can have there, we have our poster research where we show the efficacy of our system with the validation. And actually we already validating SE Labs, and we're going to have a bigger validation. This is actually what we're doing right now. Then what I want to say, and any other competitor can have a look and see, is that you can actually divide the models. That this is what we do. We have, and actually, if you enter in the system, actually, Marcus has a research account. He can look into that. You have, for example, for the THC, you have the low THC, medium THC, high THC, from 0 to 3%, from 3 to 10%, from 10 to 34, that we reach 33.7. And that's how we are able to read. So actually, the system is going to read the sample and it's going to ask you, which is the chemotype? Chemotype 1, 2, 3, or 4. Then it goes chemotype 1. Okay, chemotype 1 is THC low, medium, or high. It's THC low, go low. And then go low, say, okay, which is 0.2 or 0.3. The last validation that we had a medium error of 0.11. So the question that you said is that it would be able to differentiate 0.2, 0.3 to 0.4. Almost there. Yeah. And the key point of what you asked, and what you said, I think it's being able to have the approval by the authorities. We're working with Thailand, with Germany, with California, and this is going to be, I think, like the future of the email, no? So our parents used to send mails all around, and suddenly one day the email came, and right now we use email. So kind of a way. We always will need the HPLC and other techniques in order to see really specific small amount. With NIR, we are not able to see pesticides, and we are not able to see heavy metals. We can analyze in 1 minute and be really precise in other components, but that's the limitation. So we always going to need as well other techniques. But in any case, this would be a technique, I think, as an internal control to know how to produce properly and how to harvest and how to select the phenotypes. One of our really interesting tool that I think is going to change the industry.
Let's continue that in the car because we got to go to the airport right now. So I'm just going to shift
What was the
this
name of the
over.
company,
I'm
real
going to
quick?
turn off my.
What was the name of the company, Marcus?
AirPods, and then hopefully we can hear this one now. Here, why don't you take that?
All right.
And you can continue the conversation. And we are
Dutch,
going
when he
to go to the
reshifts,
airport.
ask again.
Yeah, I think you can ask already.
Let's go.
Yeah, so they were asking what the name of the company was that sells this device.
Valenteras.
Yeah, Valenveras. Valenveras. I'll put the link up in the description.
All right, awesome. Thank you. And how much does that thing cost?
It's about 13,000 US.
That's not cheap.
No.
No, but
it's
either is
cheaper than an
spending tens
HPLC,
of
man.
thousands.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
my
cheaper
God,
than a
dude.
HPLC or a gas
or
chromatograph for
or
sure.
yeah,
Yes.
GC,
I
right?
think those oranges are about that 15.
And in Canada, we have to test everything through that anyway. So to have something like this that you could just be doing the majority of your testing and only really have to go to the lab right at the end. Like when a company wants to like homogenize a product or something, they're doing an infused joint, they need to know the THC percentage. It's just really helpful. And I saw it validate extremely, extremely close to what the lab reports from the labs were saying. Like I said, it was under 1%.
Yeah, so I mean that's
Very
really
cool.
super important to do because if you're not validating the accuracy by like an
Exactly.
HPLC measurement, then you could
Mm-hmm.
really see results all over the place. So it's
Yep.
basically giving you ballpark results, which may not be good enough to pass the muster for say like a COA, but it would be good enough if you're kind of like just going through your grow real quick and just seeing where levels are, or if you got confused and got plants mixed up and you don't know what variety is which, and you want to go through and look at cannabinoid levels. I'd be interested in so terpene levels.
It also does macro and micronutrients of the leaf. We did that earlier today, and it showed like all the percentages of nitrogen and potassium and like it was really cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
So you could also do that after feedings to see what uptake is, etc. So you can also tailor your, if you're tailoring your nutrients, you can also hit those points.
Yeah, and foliar feed.
Sorry, I'm going to be quiet for maybe 10 minutes while I get all my shit into the car. If someone can just somehow manage this conversation, that would be incredible.
No, I like we all know the cool potentials, and I think Etienne, you hit the nail on the head. It's not to be rude, but for all of us to really get our hands on the technology, we need something that is a little more affordable. I could see that everyone's eyes were like, "Come on, this is going to be $4,000. It's going to, something, that a little bit, I know I'm sure it costs a lot. I'm not trying to dog any of that, but just that's what my brain was going, like something that I could actually afford, that I could use in house. And cannabis is unique in that it's been bred and changed in small groupings. Most agricultural crops are grown out in big things and they have more money behind them and can do that. But as big as we try to go with cannabis, but the bangers still keep coming from the closet grow. They still keep coming from bag seed. It's so having something that more people can afford and get their hands on would be a really exciting thing.
Well, if it not to play devil's advocate here, but if you're using this device to measure buds as is, it's often again a problem to correlate that to potency on a dry weight basis, right? Because all bud is moist with water, right? So even if you're using this little handy duty device here, how does that correct for how much water is in the material?
It measures active water and moisture percentage.
Yep.
So
that's how.
say that again now.
It
Dope, because
measures
that
the
can
active
help
water
me clear.
percentage and it measures the moisture of the flower. So it's every flower we measured gave us a moisture content.
Okay, so it calculates moisture as well, is what you're saying.
And active water, AW.
Active water.
Yeah,
That's
water
pretty
activity. Right, right, right.
Yeah,
Okay,
dude,
cool.
it's cool, man. I'm telling you, Dr. Mark, you would have a blast with this thing. And it's like I said, in Canada, the majority of what we test all has COAs. So this thing's just like ding, 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 nail on the head nonstop. Like I totally doubt these things. But in
Well,
Canada, we have COAs for everything.
I have a
Unless it's in
question
the black
then.
market. And even then, lots of the black market people have COAs for their stuff.
What's the cleaning and maintenance on this tool, right? Because we know that gas chromatographs not easy, cheap, UVH PLCs, et cetera, et cetera.
There's
So
no agent, super easy there is no cleaning. You just keep the top device clean. You just don't ever touch it. You could wipe it with a cloth. The battery takes about 6 hours to charge, which is a long time, but then you can do like 500 samples on a 6-hour battery. So more
Marcus,
than
what
you
is it?
could
Does
do.
it have a lens that you just hold a piece of bud or?
Yeah, well, there's a little piece that fits over the top of it. It points up like a flashlight, and then it basically, I'll drive, Shar. Oh, no, you're gonna drive.
Basically, it's got like a container with a clear bottom, and then you just crush up the flour and you put it in and make it like an even bottom, and then you put it on top of the lens. And then when you're done, you just empty that container out and you roll a joint and smoke the flour.
Right.
And
So
Exactly. That's
so
why Ruben has like 28 joints in his pocket right now, because everyone that gave a sample, it was a perfectly ground sample that, of course, you
yeah,
want to mill
no,
it. Well, you
yeah,
have
I
to
mean,
mill
a
it.
limitation of anything optical in terms of optical spectroscopy is the path length that the near IR photon has to take to get to that molecule of THC. And you can imagine, again, whether you're using a bud or whether it's ground up and everything, there could be a lot of inhomogeneity that would give you different
Gotta
results,
grind it out.
right? On whether or not it's getting like a piece of
Correct.
flour that
Absolutely.
only has a bit of a trichome
There's a
as
sweet
opposed,
spot.
yeah. So there could be, depending on like how that sample is prepared. I mean, a nice thing about like GC and LC chromatography is everything's in solution, right? So the cannabinoids are dissolved up in a sample that has got everything in solution. Here, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting to think again that the THCA is in solution inside the trichome, right? So you're not actually hitting the THC molecule itself. You're hitting the oil that's in the plant, and somehow able to discern the absorbance in the fingerprint region of the near IR for THC over everything else that could be in there, right? And there could be other things that could totally overwhelm that signal depending on how that beam of photons is coming
Dude, no,
into that sample.
it's insane. So how can it be hitting how can it be hitting so close to COAs every time? Is it just lucky?
Yeah, well, there's some statistics probably there that so you could like run it if you run. So if you grind up a sample, Marcus, like grind up like flour sample, and you run that 10 times, will you get the same result every time that you run it, or do you get a different result depending on how the sample is interacting with
If we put in a flour, there's a certain way to prepare it, just like there is with an HPLC. And if you change how you do it, you'll get a different result. Operated it differently. So big chunk of flour in, no, you want it to be drier is ideal. You want to mill it into a fine, like small particulate, and then it gives the closest, most accurate reading to the COA. That's what I saw. But I've only played with it for a couple of days. But Yeah, hopefully you and Ruben can link up one day and you can play around with one. It's kind of neat as a little lab tool.
Yeah, if he wants to send me one to play around with, I'll take it.
Pretty fun thing for sure. Well, I'm taking mine to Canara right now. I'll be just over the border probably from not far from you.
Yeah,
I'll be
you
in
know, I could see
Montreal.
Montreal is on the other side of the lake here. I think I could see it from my window.
Should
Oh,
head
wow.
up there, man. Should head up there, Mark.
Super close. Yeah. Yeah, go to Doc. Yeah, they invited you anyway to Canara.
Well, I'll just go
So
down
like
to the lake
anytime you
shore and scream your
yeah.
name and see if you could hear me.
Oh my God. I'll get my I'll make sure I clean my ears out real good. This is definitely like I can't remember the last time I did hash church on my way to the airport. This is definitely like one of those times. It's like a tenacious, like not giving up, must do hash church. Colin is a co-host, by the way. If anyone needs anything.
I'm here.
Good old
I got you all.
co-hosta. Yeah, so it should be good. Montreal for me, Toronto for Ruben. He's gonna have fun seeing all the Canadian maniacs. I'm sure Urban Remo will be there and a bunch of other characters. Johnny B with his medtainers is heading down to the Grow Up conference, so it'll be good. And I'm gonna be in Montreal. Should be very good.
Well, have a good trip, man, and we'll carry it on here. So Dr. Mark, when it comes, I have a question with the device. When it comes to measurements in terms of, quite just really anything, is there this device, as Marcus, maybe the gentleman with him can answer this easier, but the device is something that exists already in today's world. It's something that's being ported over for this application. So with that said, there has to be some sort of data science going on, or something to mimic these assays, right, to be able to get the measurements itself. And the question really is like, how are you creating those things? Because it's extremely complex. You're talking about a lot of data, coming to an inflection point.
Well, it's one thing if it's a single active ingredient. Like I said, if it were just a tablet of aspirin or ibuprofen, right? And there's just a single active ingredient in there. And then you have the IR spectrum of the active ingredient. You could look down in what's called the near IR region, which is the fingerprint region, and look for a unique peak that changes linearly as concentration changes, right? And
Yeah.
so then if you have a certified reference material, so say it's Delta 9 THC,
Yeah.
what you can do is you can do a bunch of serial dilutions, right? And so you put the full strength, say it's, I don't know, 1 mg per mil. Then if you do a tenfold dilution, it's going to be 0.1 mg per mil, and then 0.01 mg per mil. And so you run those and you look to see how that peak shrinks as a function of concentration, and you look at the linearity of that calibration curve, right? So the calibration curve is looking at the peak height, or in most cases the peak area. So you're looking at, so each peak kind of like looks like an isosceles triangle, right?
Yep.
So you basically figure out what the peak area is, and they have mathematical programs that can do that. So basically you look at the peak area, then you read your calibration curve, and you know that at that peak area you're 0.05 mgs per mil, so you can get a concentration out of that. Like for most testing that's going on at cannabis labs where you're using reverse phase HPLC, yeah, they have calibration curves for all of the standard cannabinoids that they're quantifying on that COA. So you would do the same thing with this device, and basically look to see what the linearity. So what happens is, as you start to get really dilute in concentration, that relationship between concentration and peak area or peak height starts to deviate from linearity, right? And when you start to deviate from linearity, now you can't necessarily use that calibration curve because your peaks are off the curve, so to speak. So you have to kind of look at like what, like if you're doing the determination between hemp and cannabis, you have to have a linear response on an order of magnitude on each side of that curve. So you got to be able to read down to 0.03% and got to read able up to like 3% to basically show that over that concentration regime that you have a linear response, right? Then
and
if you're using, if you're using a machine like this, or if you're using GC, in most cases, GC will be coupled with something called a flame ionization detector, which is just detecting anything that burns that comes out. But the more sophisticated ones couple it with a mass spectrometer, and the mass spectrometers typically are much more sensitive, especially at really, really low concentrations. So the one that I have Shimadzu. It's a QP210. QP stands for quadrupole. So that's just the mass spectrometer is basically sensitive down to like it only needs. So when I do an injection, Colin, I'm typically trying to get things right around 0.1 mg per mil. 1 mg per mil is way too concentrated because what happens is as it goes through the GC, we have a splitter at the end of the GC, and not everything goes to the mass spectrometer because the mass spectrometer is so sensitive. It only needs to see like a nanogram worth of material in order to get a signal, in order to make a peak. So we do either 1,000 to 1 or 100 to 1 split of that 0.1 mg per mil solution. So do the math for a second. So if you're 0.1 mg per mils, what I'm saying is we only need 1,000th of that, which is basically 0.1 nanograms to basically light up the mass spectrometer. With this detector, with the near IR, it's not going to be even close to what the mass spectrometer is going to be able to do. So that's why I think what he was saying, and very accurately, is that you can't use this for, say, like, pesticides at like parts per million or parts per billion level, right? You just won't see them, right? Because there's just not enough signal in there. So for something like that, you would need the mass spectrometer to basically get that level of or see something at say 10 parts per million, or even lower than that.
But so to even build off of that, but it seems to me like it's possible to eventually get there though, through data science, right? You could mimic it, much like, let's say, for instance, in my world, I often find myself watching videos of people building and recreating older synthesizers, right? And then you see them play a note and let's play another note, and they're like matching whether or not those oscillators and those chipsets match that tonality. I kind of think about this in that same realm where it's like eventually, through data science, you actually could create a one for one, like digital analog kind of thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think you're up against the sensitivity of the analytical technique itself. I mean, just the sensitivity in the IR is just going to be orders of magnitude different than the mass spectrometer. Like NMR, like everyone always thinks, when they hear about NMR and they understand like oh, NMR is great. But NMR is great down to about 0.1 weight percent. Beyond that, you really don't have enough. Well, it depends. If you're looking in the proton and the carbon, you just don't have enough signal intensity in order to see stuff that's that dilute. Like I can show you a sample of like purified CBD where there's nothing else in there, and I can show you a sample of CBD distillate by NMR, and they look spot on identical. You can't tell the difference because the components that are in there that makes one a distillate and makes the other an isolate are just beyond the limit of detection. And I think that that's what this device ultimately is. You're just going to be beyond the limit of detection. I think for the major occurring compounds like the terpenes and the cannabinoids that are there in single digit percents and higher, yeah, you can get a reasonable ballpark estimate. Like you might see something like 12.2% THC. Well, you bring that to an HPLC testing lab, and they're now going to tell you that that's actually 14.5. So you might, again, get results that are close, but not absolutely certain. What Marcus was saying is that he's seen the correlation, and I think that's important that they're working with SC Labs, who's got a rich, history of being able to, correlate these data points. And again, I'm not trying to throw the thing under the bus. All I'm trying to say is that the reality of the situation is that the sensitivity of that detection is going to have its limits, and it's only going to be good down to, I don't know, say like 0.1 or 0.2%. I think if you go down below that, I think this thing is
point one. You're correct. 0.1.
0.1. Okay. Okay. Well,
it's not a proton NMR, but it does get like hold in your hand, and the idea of
there's a lot of power.
I'm excited to go to Canara and show Assam like the macronutrients in his flowering plants and what's missing what, because when he sees that, he's going to be like, dude, that's insane.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of power to that. It's giving you a water activity measurement. I mean, I need to do
just in flower. In extracts, it gives really cannabinoid content. That's pretty much what you get for extracts. Whether you put oil in, he tested like BHO the other day. He tested like blocks of hash that he just like pressed in. The guy gave him a black hash. He said this is 40%. He was an older dude, and he put it in the machine, and like a minute later it spit out like 39.2 or something. And the guy was like, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it would be interesting, like on an analytical reference standard, like something like for THCA, so it's like 99.9999% pure. What does the reading come back on that? Like how do the certified reference standards stack up to the data that the machine gets? It'd be just interesting to look at that, see how they correlate.
Do you hear that
again,
question?
I would assume at high concentrations they'll correlate nicely, but at the lower concentrations you might deviate from linearity a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely reminds me of early days of audio.
Take it. Any other? Oh, is it on mute? Yeah. Cool. It might be. No, it's not on mute. We're good. So you just have to talk a little louder.
Yeah, we can hear you guys. If you can talk a little louder.
A little louder, guys.
We're trying. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud, clear. Lima Charlie.
Yeah. Okay. I can't tell if I talk into my phone. My wife's car has taken the audio, and because I'm on Zoom on my phone, I'm like a 90-year-old man. I have no fucking idea how to disconnect it from the car. It's awesome. Really stoked on that, actually.
If you go in your settings and disconnect the...
Oh, here we go. I found it. Here we go. I found it. All right. Here, I'll pass it over to Ruben, and he can say what he was saying.
Is that
can you hear us
Bubble Mom I hear?
Yeah, that's Bubble Mom.
Hi, Bubble Mom.
Hello.
Hi, Bubble Ma'am.
Hello.
So coming back to the question, Dr. Mark, I see you know really well how it works, because you are asking the questions, the more difficult ones, which are the ones that I really love. So once we start trying to have the validation in the GMP process, as you said, we should have samples to be sure that the calibration is done properly, so the lines are aligned with the proper measurements. Basically, all the units, once they are assembled in United States, they have a process that they validate with different components. And in this case, they see the absorptions of these different materials to ensure that each of the units that we are using are actually gone into the right way. But then according to what you were saying, if in any case we would need to have a GMP validation by this unit, we would need to have what you said. That is actually to have a reference every 6 months to be sure that we are aligned. All the tests that we have been doing during the last 3 years, it's super constant. It's really, really on that way. In any case, what I always ask to companies that are getting this technology is that we align with their lab. As you know, many of the labs, they have differences. It depends which is working, how do you dilute it, which is the time of your column. Even if it's an ISO 17025, you would have a small variance that this could be as well adjusted. And in any case, this is what we actually recommend. Actually, once we do the renewals, I actually like always to have this kind of validation. But as I said before, it's super constant. And in any case, really good question, Dr. Mark.
Yeah, I mean, can you like with HPLC? I mean, one of the well, I won't say the shortcoming, but an issue with HPLC. So HPLC, unlike this method, is separating out the individual components to quantitate them. So in the cases where you have difficult to separate isomers of THC, would this be can you tell the difference between delta 9 and delta 8 THC with this instrument?
Wow. And this is the third more difficult question. Isomers. That's a super good question. NIR cannot differentiate isomers. Actually, we were talking yesterday with Bubble Man in a problem we had in Europe due to the fact that HHC was all around. And then suddenly we were seeing flowers of 11% of CBD, 20% THC. And was like, yet? That's not possible. Then actually, we cannot differentiate isomers with NIR. That's a reality.
Okay, well, that's good to know. But maybe one of the things that you can look for is not just the ring isomers between delta 8 and delta 9, but maybe like some of these non-natural isomers, like the iso delta 8, iso delta 4-8. I mean, those are completely different ring structures altogether, and maybe the instrument can discern between those non-natural isomers, the isoisomers in particular.
Yeah, exactly. The non-naturals, like the Nano 9, the new Nano 9 that we are seeing in Europe, we don't identify it as THC, which is so good. And yeah, it depends on each of the components, but yeah, luckily the non-naturals, we're actually able to differentiate them, unless the HHC, which is an isomer of the THC, and it's so similar that the absorption is so similar than the THC. But HHC is not that famous anymore. Actually, it's banned in Europe, so hopefully we'll not see it that much anymore.
Well, I mean, again, HHC is not an isomer of THC, right? HHC is hydrogenated THC, so they're not isomers; they're different compounds altogether.
Right, you are right. Yes. In
But
any
they're
case,
very
imagine
similar.
just similar. Yeah, exactly. Being that similar to that was difficult to differentiate. But in any case, the Nano 9, for example, not at all.
Nano 9. What is Nano 9?
Oh, bro, like they ban HHC, and suddenly the next day labs they already have like 3 or 4 different synthetic THCs that are putting into the CBD flowers to be able to sell it, because we don't have regulations, or it's only Germany right now having a regulation, and it's not regulated, it's just decriminalized. So as I said before, I wish that Europe will have the situation that you have here in Canada, and I'm sure our quality weed has structures that are going to be way better once we will have this kind of regulation, or at least this is my thing. I don't know. Let's see.
Nano 9. I got to look that one up. Is that what it's called? It's called Nano 9?
Yes. I'm sure I can. Yeah, if you can't find it, I'll have Ruben send you like a link.
Yeah, I wonder what it is. Is it it's a phytocannabinoid or a derivative?
I suspect it's a synthetic. Yeah, synthetic.
Some
synthetic.
Spice. I will actually send you the list of the people that give me all the new ones. if you want, so you can have a look.
Oh yeah. He gets a list all the time of all the new ones that are popping
Oh
up
my
because,
God.
like he said, right, his country's a mess. There's no regulation, and people are just like, the minute one gets illegal, like an hour later, they have 6 new ones that they're manufacturing by the ton to fucking dose the CBD flower to sell to the people. Oh my
It's
god.
crazy, right?
Well, it's actually, I would go as far to say that that's actually super fucked up. I mean,
Yeah.
holy Christ. Plus, who even knows what these molecules are doing?
It's completely unethical.
Well, when you said the spice compound, that's a completely non-phytocannabinoid synthetic that just has a high, super high potency for the CB1 receptor, right? It's a full-on agonist as opposed to just being a partial agonist. So that's the compound where people, end up in the emergency room. And
Yeah. Well, that was what the weight loss drug there, Robonabond.
yeah,
There's a whole
right.
bunch of other ones. They're full
Rabinaban, yeah.
antagonists. Those are bad news, man. I think that was 2008. Dr. Allen and I did a show on Robonaband and how they had to stop it because like people were, it
Committing
was bad.
suicide. Yeah,
Bad. Yeah,
yeah.
suicidal ideation was definitely one of the big ones.
Well, 3 of the people committed suicide. That was kind of a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yep.
we did a cross study on the in the master class because it was a study in cannabinoid and using a cannabinoid which they thought would be beneficial, right? And when they blocked that particular receptor, it had detrimental results. And
Yeah, well, you're
that's
blocking homeostasis.
yes, absolutely shutting, literally blocking it completely,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
literally driving people insane. I mean, it is a shame, and it was a weight loss drug, people.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It was a weight loss drug. Holy shit. What a crazy world we live in, man. Yeah, so anyone that wants to check it out, Dr. David Allen and I did a show on this. I think it's Cannabis Journal Volume 8 or 9. It's one of the most recent shows we did. You can go check that out. And hopefully we're going to get Dr. Mark on there for an episode here soon. He's a little bit busier. It's just lucky that we're all available on Sunday morning, even though I suspect it's not Sunday morning for you, Storm.
No, it is far from Sunday. Sunday, it's 8 o'clock Sunday night. Me.
Okay, it's not too bad.
Yeah.
Little bit of a time difference there. Well,
Yeah.
it's only 10 to 11 a.m. here in Vancouver, and I'm driving through the
Lovely.
causeway of Stanley Park.
Wow, that's spectacular. Hey,
Yeah,
yo.
it's pretty wicked. Nice trees. Before you get to Vancouver, you drive through a park the size of downtown Vancouver. Oh, it's quite lovely. Quite
Yeah.
lovely. What else is going on in the world of church and hash and all of these wonderful folks that are on the Tan, we haven't really heard from you in a while. You went away on a boat cruise, and I apologize because you came in on a hammock. It was just your feet and the background of your view. And I tried to sort of be like, hey, Tan's on a boat. And then I don't know, I think we were in some deep conversation with Ryan and Dr. Mark. We didn't acknowledge you, and I apologize for that.
Oh, no stress. I was on vacation. I was gifted a cross-Atlantic cruise. So I went from Miami to Barcelona with stops in the Canary Islands. I went to Morocco, which was fucking crazy. But I had a subsea glass piece that I had made years ago. Subsea pipe is a traditional Moroccan pipe for smoking keef. It usually comes with these small clay pieces, and the pipes are usually they're 2 pieces, and they fit into a bag, and that's how people travel with them. And it's used for, it's a very small head, so it's used specifically for keef. Um, and when I was there, I was able to get one, a 2 piece and a 3 piece. Last ones I had gotten were in the Amsterdam, so it was. I figured, hey, if I could get something cool while in Morocco. Um, but yeah, I went to Casablanca and then I went to Marrakesh. The gardens in Marrakesh, fucking amazing. And then Barcelona, I was at La Crema Gracia. Was hoping to broadcast from there, but it was the Rob Clark Church. But I would love to at some point have Stefan on because his shop in Barcelona is, to me, a mecca for anybody in cannabis because of the cannabis history from Mossy Giant that's completely projected on the walls. Amazing. And then
Love Mossy.
and then I spent 3 days in Lisbon, which was trippy because for people who aren't aware or who are aware, Portugal legalized all drugs, small, yeah, amounts, and there's no distribution points or spots. Lots of street dealers, lots of outdoor cannabis, more coke offers than I could possibly. I don't do white drugs except for CBD occasionally. So yeah, it was a trip to see such an advanced culture around drugs have no distribution access points still. So that was rather fascinating. But there was I guess, a hemp expo that happened the weekend before I got there. But was surprised by Lisbon, but yeah, I was not wanting. I was good. Thank you, Puffco. Things worked very well, and I highly recommend Virgin Cruises. There's no kids, so holy shit, it was fucking sweet. So if I needed the R&R, and it was great to get away, but I missed y'all. I did pop up on the boat, but I was about to nap out on because they have hammocks on all the balconies. So it's wonderful to kind of chill in a balcony. I mean, on a hammock. So yeah, when I checked in, I was about to nap out, and I was napping out, so I switched out and kind of went on my way. But missed y'all. Happy to be back. Was fascinating to see, of course, great hash at La Crema Gracia. They have amazing rosins, and so it was rather surprising that there are no coffee shops or gathering spots, like I've seen in Canada, I've seen in the United States. We in BPG had, on-site consumption. So I would hope something like that is happening, and maybe I didn't find it in particularly there, but I asked a lot of people, including locals, and nobody seems to really have. It's mostly street dealers and street access. So rather surprising. So it's always fun to go into different countries and understand their drug cultures. Be careful while doing so, people. Don't expose yourself or put yourself in any dangers. But it's always fascinating to see what's happening compared to what we've done stateside. I've been invited to South Africa, and I will be there in October for an event. So I'll be fascinated to see and meet you, Storm, as well as to see the South African scene, as well as because the first cannabis I ever grew back in 1989 was Durban Poison. So I have a special affinity in my soul for South African cannabis, and I look forward to trying the real deal in the real place. So
Awesome.
thanks, everybody.
Yeah. I mean, would love, yeah, we're really looking forward to meet you, man. Yeah, we've got some amazing breeders. We've got some amazing hash makers. There's really some incredible stuff going on. And given our climate, the African sun is quite a powerful thing. So we can grow some trees when we grow full-term outdoor greenhouse. So yeah, looking forward to meeting you, man.
Yeah, I've heard great things from Myrtle and everything that's happening there, as well as we've also seen the hiccup recently by the government there in South Africa. They were trying to make edibles and other things illegal, and fortunately, there was enough of a rise up by the peoples to shut that down. But unfortunately, the same shenanigans that happen in our countries happen in South Africa too. So one of the things we always say about the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. So you have to keep up on what's going on because Dr. Mark, right there in Pennsylvania, they tried to pass the state store model, right? Where they tried to really screw over, regional access or private access by doing what they've done lazily in the past, which is have state store model, which for those that aren't aware, alcohol that is high or even low alcohol used to only be available in the state stores in Pennsylvania, which means you could not go to a store, you could go to a bar, but you could not go to a store and buy certain access points of liquor. So the state of Pennsylvania tried to hijack basically the enforced through a finally allowing adult use, but only through the state store model. And fortunately, that was shut down. But again, it takes people being aware of what's happening and being active. One of my friends, Tony Landry, he's down there in Louisiana doing really pushing for access for medical marijuana, especially for veterans. And they seized his phone because they're actually broadcasting legally those proceedings there for the state, but somebody didn't like him recording their conversations, and they took his phone. And so he's in the midst of suing the state of Louisiana over access to just being there so that others could see and what's going on, which is legal. So there's oppression happening around cannabis as well as shenanigans all the time. So wherever you are, be aware of what's happening around you. Don't check out. You have to be aware. Otherwise, you're going to be subject to, the realities that are happening. So I'm glad, Dr. Mark, that things changed in Pennsylvania and that, people are waking up to those types of shenanigans. But those legislatures are still trying to manipulate the scenes. So, be aware, be alert. The world needs more alerts, as we used to say. So,
You're absolutely right. But I moved from Pennsylvania back in 2022. ATN.
you're in Vermont.
I'm in Vermont now. Yeah. So I don't have to worry about it. But yeah, what I can tell you down in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania has a rich history in cannabis and hemp, and certainly was one of the states that moved their medical program forward quickly. This was back in 2014. They moved their hemp program forward, but yeah, it seems as though the GOP holds the House and the Senate there, and they could never kind of come up with a good bill that basically, I mean, the Commonwealth wants it. People want legal cannabis. And it's even more disappointing. I mean, here in Vermont and other places like Maine, I mean, cannabis has been legislated over the goal line in some of these states, ATN, but even though like states have voted for adult use, the programs haven't been initiated and haven't gone forward. And really, patients don't have any more enhanced access now than before the states voted for adult use. It's super frustrating. And yeah, in Pennsylvania, they have the state-run liquor stores, and yeah, there's a lot of people who make money in controlling access to liquor in Pennsylvania. And where we live, we were right on the Delaware and Maryland border, and we would just go to the other states and not have to pay the surcharges in Pennsylvania when we wanted to buy booze. But just because you have a state-run liquor stores, that doesn't mean that that's a good spot to put cannabis dispensaries. In fact, ATN, is there an example where state-run liquor stores and then putting dispensaries in have actually worked? Right? I don't think that model.
Well, you know what happened in Washington was sorry, there's a little bit of an echo. But Washington was in Colorado were one of the first two to come online, at the same time. And what folks may not know is that a few years prior to cannabis coming on, Washington had state-run liquor stores, and that was voter removed. And so we had a liquor control board that had a lot of job vacancies. And so when cannabis came online, it made sense to the government to give that new task to cannabis. No one had ever done this before, right? There was no model. Like Colorado and Oregon Colorado and Washington got voted in the same year. And so it was just to point out that was the beginning of where other states, when they would come online, they would look to Washington's model in Colorado's model and pick and choose what they liked. And a lot of states followed Washington's model, where they brought in these liquor control board agents and made them become the new cannabis. And they now call it the Liquor Cannabis Board. And there's a new trend, thankfully. Minnesota, New York, and other states have their own state cannabis board, which I appreciate, because there is a drastic difference. I've held medical licenses, hemp licenses, and recreational cannabis license in Washington. And dealing with the ag folks on the hemp side of things, it's totally different. They're there to help you. They say, hey, do this, make sure you fill this out. Don't do this. They give you the, make sure you don't do this, make sure you do it this way. They're not trying to trick you or to catch you, where it feels the opposite with the recreational thing. And I think it's because of the nature of where they had come from. My only experience again is Washington and Minnesota. But just to kind of comment on how shit just happens, just remembering that,
No, we follow the same thing in California. They hired in alcohol people to, oversee, because they felt that they had regulated, and of course we have the distribution, right, set up in system, which is what they came from. So they went lazily and easily and went that direction, and inadvertently the law, I mean, California, I can only speak for, we had it split into 3 different agencies that were finally consolidated back into one to oversee, and they're still rolling that shit out here in California. So yeah, it's a cluster. So other states and countries can learn from our mistakes as well as from our foibles, and seeing like the successes like New York and them taking up that mantle and doing things in a more proper professional way.
What's interesting in Washington, they maybe the last year or so, they just started finishing the original license applications from 10 years ago. They had opened an application period for 30 days, and it took them almost 10 years to work through every single last one of them. And there was about 1,500 applications in Washington state. And in Minnesota, where the population is just about the same, but in Minnesota there is about 4,000 applications. And I just saw an ad where they're advertising for jobs for enforcement agents to come and do inspections, and I'm like, oh Lord, they haven't even hired the inspectors, and we're all sitting here having paid our application fee. It's May, end of May, almost June. We're waiting, going, when can we plant our weed? And they haven't even hired the inspectors yet. Just like, fuck, dude, you can't even, like, no wonder you haven't got back to me. I don't know. I don't know why we're going down this road. It's not a happy road to go down. Let's turn it around.
It's a word of caution for people.
Well, I think just because you know how to regulate alcohol doesn't mean that an organization knows how to regulate cannabis. I think that was the lesson that we learned from Washington, right, Dutch? I mean, I think that when they take people who are regulating alcohol and say, oh, okay, you're going to be on the cannabis control board, it's just a completely different thing, right? Because there's no 280E. There's no, you don't have chain of custody issues with alcohol that you do with cannabis, right? And so, like, I don't think that one size fits all. Oh, it's a vice that gets people fucked up. Therefore, these people who regulate alcohol know what the hell to do. The thing in Minnesota, Dutch, that again, like, if you just look at trends on what's going on, like the beverage play in Minnesota has really changed the game. And in fact, I wanted to shout out Hawaii Sustainable in the chat, who basically said that nano 9 is nothing more than nano emulsified D9. It's probably hemp derived D9 too, I would imagine. So, yeah, I mean, that whole taking advantage of the fact that so liquor and alcohol has got these distribution networks and supply chains, right? And so instantly, right, when Minnesota turned that thing on, now you can go to a party store or a liquor store and buy THC infused beverages, right? Which
And the
just
gas station,
yeah, gas station.
and the bar,
But
which is like
so just to go back to 18 was talking about Pennsylvania. So in Pennsylvania, if they were creative enough there, the beverages would go into these state-run stores, right? And so, so I think if Pennsylvania was truly interested in getting those state-run liquor stores involved in the cannabis market, doesn't it make sense to start with cannabis-based beverages, right? So do what they did in Minnesota and other states now. So to big beverage, cannabis is just or nano emulsion, if we want to just talk about nano emulsion, is just a freaking ingredient, right?
Mhm.
That's an ingredient. So they're already using different flavors, different sugars, different sugar substitutes and all that. So to big beverage, it's like, oh, okay. So now the state regulation says that we could have THC containing beverages in liquor stores. And you could see these liquor stores, right? You go to Total Wine, there's a whole display of like 50 different brands of cannabis drinks, right? 10 milligrams.
It's more than the beer.
Yeah, well,
it's crazy.
And so the trend in the market, from what I understand, I don't believe everything I read on the internet, but I believe some of it, is that actually there's double-digit growth in the cannabis sector, in the cannabis beverage sectors, where it's been kind of like flatline for alcohol for years. And if anything, now they're starting to see those numbers go down. So alcohol consumption's going down, cannabis beverage consumption is going up. I think that's in part due to these states like Minnesota that have progressive laws. But what it's also due in part to is the fact that, 5 or 6 years ago, there were a bunch of beverages on the market and they all tasted like shit. And they all lost their potency inside the can. So, right. So like inside the can itself, basically you could put, I don't know, extract or distillate in there. But ultimately, if it's not properly emulsified, it basically sticks to the inner surface of the can and never comes out, right? So what you think is a 20 milligram drink might only be like a 5 milligram drink. So in the last, handful of years, there's been a couple companies that have figured this out. So not only can they make a stable nano emulsion that holds its potency, but now they can actually make one that actually tastes good. Or let me put it this way, it tastes neutral, right? So about 4 or 5 years ago, if you were using things like polysorbate and other gross, food-based synthetic emulsifiers, yeah, your cannabis beverages tasted like, Listerine. And I'm not talking about, the new Lister Mint, which is, green and blue inside the box. I'm talking about the old Listerine that was piss colored and tasted like piss too, right? It just had a really kind of like medicinal kind of phenol kind of flavor to it, right? Tasted like Cepacol, right? Which is the stuff you take when you have a sore throat, right? It almost like would numb your throat, right? So there's a very medicinal kind of taste to a lot of these emulsifiers that were being used to emulsify THC oil. So now they've kind of figured out how to use natural sweeteners and other natural ingredients to basically make nano emulsions that are stable and that taste good. So now for big beverage, this is a no-brainer, right? Because for them, it's just another freaking ingredient, right? It's like adding a flavor. It's like, oh, you want to make these contain THC? Great. Now with the hemp derived thing, so think about this for a second. They could bring CBD into the front end of the building, right? or the back door, doesn't make a difference as long as it's inside the building. Now they can chemically convert that into THC and now make nano emulsion and dilute it back down. So
or
like
just
when you're
THCA.
well,
I mean,
when you're just like a 10 milligram in a 12-ounce can, 10 milligrams in a 12-ounce can, that turns out to be 0.028% THC. So you're an order of magnitude lower than the threshold for hemp. And still, in that 10 milligram beverage, even a THC user like most of us on the panel here, I'm telling you, I could feel the effects of nano emulsified THC when I'm halfway through a 10 milligram can. So what that says is that the nano emulsified form of THC is much more bioavailable. It has a
it's much
rapid
more
onset.
bioavailable, and it doesn't wallop you in the head. What we're used to it is like these higher potency things that once they kick in, they wallop you in the head.
Yeah.
I didn't understand this when I moved here. Driving here, I was joking, and then I was like, this is going to be a bad time for soccer moms that go out with the girls on Friday night and have a few martinis and then try the THC drink and then can't drive home, and all sorts of spins. And I'm like, this is not going to put a good name for weed, was my original thought. And I was totally wrong. What it's done is because it comes on, it doesn't wallop you. The average person can take it and they're like, oh, that feels good. And then they have another one, and next thing you know, they're like waking up. They're like, man, I haven't slept that good in decades. And then they go, and I'm happy and I don't wake up with a hangover. And now they're like, that's what they're doing. They're like skipping the beer, skipping the other stuff, and it's been such a, and it's also like so palatable to the new consumer,
right,
who doesn't like the smell, is thinking of, burning pipes and everything that you might put on cannabis.
Yeah, well,
if you're not a user, you're like, you can have a lemon lime drink that's low potency and I can just dip a toe into this water and see if I like this. And they do, and they're like,
10
holy
milligrams,
shit.
At 10 milligrams, you're so dilute with the other components that you could barely taste them. It barely leaves like a bitter aftertaste or anything like that. And that's the best thing for beverages, is no aftertaste, no bitterness. No, sometimes you could feel almost like a chalky feel inside your mouth. Like you could feel that there's something in there, right? But I think that what happens too, I don't have any data on this, is that you get absorption of the nano emulsion in the oral mucosa, and it doesn't go down into your stomach. Like if you're drinking the beverage, it's going to get absorbed into your oral mucosa, which, if you think about it, is going to put it in the bloodstream in advance to being oxidized by the liver. And now you're in the bloodstream in the vicinity of your brain. So yeah, there is, the notion that you're going to get a rapid onset of activity that you wouldn't normally get if you just took like a tincture or something like that. The other thing, like with gummies, is that, people tend to, not suck on the gummy. They just tend to eat it right away because it just tastes so good. And now that goes down into your gut and everything. And you might take a couple gummies. Oh, I don't feel anything. Take a couple more. Oh, I don't feel anything. And then, an hour later or two later, you're feeling like you got to take tomorrow off of work because you just got this incredible body high. And it makes sense, right? Because after the stuff gets digested in your stomach, then it goes into your liver and it gets oxidized in the liver. And now you're probably not going to get across the blood-brain barrier, but what you're going to do is you're going to titrate your peripheral endocannabinoid system, which are your CB2 receptors that all throughout your body. That's why you get that incredible body high, right, after you eat something, as opposed to, just take it. These nano emulsions, I really think changed the game, because I was super skeptical. I'm like, 10 milligrams? I'm not going to get off on 10 milligrams. Give me like 50 or 100. No, what? 10 milligrams was just fine in one of those nano emulsion beverages. So I don't know. That's my experience anyway.
No, it's cool. And like, I can drink a little bit more. I have a pretty high threshold. but what I was going to say that's cool about it is because it is so acceptable, and it's just a can. It doesn't like have any skull and crossbones or anything scary on it. You know what I mean? You could take it to whatever event, pretty much. You know, family gathering, picnic, even places where beer isn't acceptable. You can bring these, and like for someone like myself that needs to consume, you know, every couple hours to feel good, to go to a 4-hour picnic or whatever and not be able to smoke can sometimes be a drag at the end, you know, or I'm wanting to leave just because I need to smoke. And these things just kind of, they do the trick in a way that I haven't experienced with edibles before. Usually when I have 100 milligrams, 50 milligrams, 200 milligrams, I'm wanting to smoke. I'm in a different world, you know. This can kind of get me through the times when I'm not able to smoke, but I still feel okay. You know what I mean? I'm really just enjoying it, and there still is a flavor battle out there. You know, there's high sugar things. But there is, like you said, there's people using natural sugars and low quantities, and they're really starting to dial it in. And the other part that I was going to lead into that you might have some thoughts on, Mark, was that's part of this is the hops and terpene extraction companies, Abstract, and they're really coming out with some really spot on flavor profiles. Where like the early days of botanical terpene matching stuff, it wasn't quite the same thing. You know what I mean? It was pleasant, right? I'm trying to be nice, but these things that I'm trying are like, holy shit, this tastes like I'm drinking weed, man, in a really good way, not in the green, nasty, bitter way, but like in the complexity of when you're like, holy fuck, what is it? What are these flavors? Like I've been very thoroughly impressed by a few companies. You know, I'll shout out this distillery who has just taken what I think is the lead in quality at their Earl Giles in Minneapolis, and they do a sesh every Wednesday. You can go down there, and they have an upstairs. They have a distillery with alcohol, but they have an upstairs bar that's only THC, and they let you smoke on the porch too, with a patio outside. And it's really dope. And these guys are making some incredible cannabis flavors. And so you kind of get closer to that entourage effect. I mean, it's not really the whole deal. You know what I mean? It's not going to replace smoking for me, but it's pretty damn cool. And I think that it's nice because as someone who really enjoys the flavor of cannabis, especially fresh, to be able to share that with people who don't necessarily get to see it, you know, is really cool. It's, you know what I mean? Like even my parents who, you know, see my farm on many occasions, they're always impressed with the fresh flower as opposed to, you know, the cured dried flower or whatever else they see. You know, it's just it's not what people think, you know.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's the one thing I wonder though with emulsifiers in general is just like how it affects the gut. Because a lot of this stuff really is not great for you when over time it doesn't break down well.
Gotcha.
Nano emulsions, they use an ultrasonic emulsifier. So they just put the oil and the water together and blast it with the ultrasonic, and then it emulsifies. So fortunately, you don't get any of that.
Well, that's one way of doing it. You could use a sonication. There's a couple different ways of doing it. You could build a nanoparticle around the oil droplets once they're emulsified. The big beverage uses mostly what's called a microfluidizer, which is basically just you're sending 12 lanes of traffic through a 2-lane tunnel, so it forces particles to be small. There's a variety of different ways you could do it. You know, the other cool thing that you see all the time, you know, well, you see this fast-acting gummies, right? Have you seen this? So what they're using the nano emulsion, which is a liquid. So when you think of nano emulsion, think of like milk. Dairy milk, perfect example, because dairy milk is emulsified fat in a continuous layer of water. So when you take nano emulsion and now add it to the gummy cook, right away, you're above the boiling point of water. So all the water boils away. But what happens is those nano droplets. So let's talk about the nano emulsion itself. Let's talk about this for a second. So what you're doing is, so we all know that cannabinoids aren't soluble in water, right? You ever try cleaning your bong out with water? Doesn't work too well, right? Right. So you basically have to take your cannabinoids and put them into. So cannabinoids are what a formulation chemist would call a hard oil. So when you look at distillate, distillate is not, it's not a soft oil, it's a hard oil. You have to basically dissolve the hard oil in a soft oil. So typically what we would do is we would take our cannabinoid input, whether it's CBD or THC distillate or liquid diamonds, whatever it is, and you take that oil and you dissolve it up in something like MCT. MCT is a acronym for medium chain triglycerides, which is basically just fractionated coconut oil. Typically MCT, the one you use is the liquid form. So coconut oil is a low melting oil, naturally occurring oil. And if you fractionate the liquid portion from the solid portion, that becomes what we call MCT, right? So you could take MCT, which is a great oil vehicle for cannabis, or you could use sunflower oil, soybean oil. I wouldn't advise it, but you could use canola oil, olive oil, and other cooking oils, edible oils, right? And what you do is you add those oils to a rapidly stirring water solution, right? So normally, like if you just add oil to water, like in oil and vinegar, you're going to separate, right? Because the oil is not water soluble, so the oil stays on the top. But when you're making nano emulsion, what you're doing is you're spinning at a very, very high shear rate. So when those oil droplets hit the water, they're immediately going to emulsify, because you have to have your emulsifiers in that solution. So in with my recipe, the one that I use, I have both an emulsifier in the oil phase. So typically what we use is we use sunflower lecithin. Lecithin's a naturally occurring emulsifier that's in plants, and people use it a lot to emulsify oil. So what we also do is we have emulsifiers in the aqueous layer. So when we're adding the oil, or actually what we do is we actually add the water to the oil and we stir it. So what happens is when you stir it, it makes a very small droplet of oil. And what happens is those droplets of oil are now emulsified in the solution. So when you look at the oil solution, you can see through it. You look at the water solution, you can see through it. But when you mix the two, it now creates this emulsified oil, which now scatters light. So that's why the emulsion is going to look white like milk. So notice how you can't see through milk, right? Milk is an oil and water emulsion. And in fact, butter is just the opposite. Butter is a water and oil emulsion. So when you melt butter, you can see through the fat layer, you can see through the water layer. But when they mix, right, at room temperature, or when they get cold, they scatter light. So what happens is the emulsifier keeps the oil droplets emulsified, because it keeps the oil droplets from talking to one another. If the oil droplets talk to one another, they'd separate out and make a second oil phase, right? Like oil and vinegar, right? So like think of the creamy Italian, you're emulsifying the oil and the water layer by having egg yolk in there as the emulsifier. So you're able to emulsify the two layers together and make, again, just an emulsion, which looks like milk. And now when you drop that into your bright tank to go to make a beverage, yeah, it's going to look basically cloudy because it's basically a dispersion, a particle dispersion. But the cool thing is when you put that into your gummy mix, you boil off the water And now those oil droplets stay nano emulsified within the matrix of sugar. So now your oil and water emulsion is now oil and sugar emulsion, completely emulsified. And I'm telling you, man, those fast acting gummies, like if you just take a regular gummy and taste it, yeah, you can keep it in your mouth and you could feel a little bit of THC oil in there. But with the fast acting gummies, I'm telling you, I was super skeptical going into it. But just like the beverages, I can tell you that those fucking things work. And within probably about 5 or 10 minutes, you could feel a psychoactivity come on from those fast acting gummies. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. I mean, I think it's definitely
Chemistry, Colin.
yeah. I mean, it's at its finest, right? I mean, I think that's what we've all been chasing in terms of just edibles and experience in terms of that type of delivery. And all the way to drinks, I think, there's a huge world to explore there that's kind of unfolding. And as you pointed out, there's a lot of people already paving the way here.
You
They're
would think
in the
that 10
market.
milligrams would work on someone like us. You'd
Yeah.
like, hey, give me 100. But man, I would be scared to actually drink 100 milligram nano emulsified beverage. That would give me too fucked up. At least me. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
other people want to go there.
Yeah, I mean it's well, and back to the taste and the flavor masking, I think Dutch, you brought it up. There's a lot of that going on with bad emulsifiers, and it's either peppery or too acidic, a lot of the case. I think a lot of what I hear is the acidity. So it's hard to formulate around and make something taste actually great. You can't use like really naturally occurring flavors because you need flavor maskers to get, even the most simple ingredient in there to make it taste good.
Yeah,
So
they sell something called bitter block, which
yeah,
I think if you're using some of these older based like polysorbate type emulsifier. So polysorbate, yeah, you could make a good nano emulsion that's stable, but
yeah,
it's got that medicinal, like when you drink it, you're like, oh man, is
yeah,
this medicine? It tastes like
totally.
medicine, right?
Yeah, and then yeah, right. It's like that familiar taste that we remember as children taking insert here, whatever,
Yeah, like
whatever
cherry flavored
cough syrup.
antibiotic or something.
Yeah, but I think we are way beyond that. I know there's a guy I work with has a manufacturing facility in Eugene, Oregon, and he's using stuff from the pharmaceutical industry that's way outside of the cannabis industry as an emulsifier, and it's starting to really, he's starting to figure it out. It doesn't. I think we're starting to get there in terms of taste and just the ability to make the form factor taste good.
Yeah,
But
a lot of those specialty ingredients for beverages come from China and Asia. So I don't know if they're going to be impacted by the tariffs and the trade war that's happening, but certainly availability of those things, a lot of those emulsifiers, the sucrose esters and whatnot, you got to buy in 20 kilogram bags at a time. And yeah, you're buying them from some guy over in Singapore. It's like, you know,
totally. Yeah. No, there's a lot to, as you're pointing out, there's a lot to still kind of figure out with all this, but it's at least I think it's in the right people's hands right now. I think, as my buddy Adam said, I think a lot of the riffraff is starting to go away. And a lot of the people that want to be here and have been here are sticking around, and as a result, the products are starting to get better. So, um,
yeah,
you
well,
know,
they certainly taste better. And I can tell you that they're definitely active and they don't, I don't, there's no weed flavor in there at all. So
yeah,
there's really the nano emulsion isn't bringing any flavor at all. So again, this probably is one of the reasons why the hemp derived version to make THC, which again is really cheap and is not going to have. So when you extract cannabis and you turn it into a distillate, you're bringing over all those planty distillate flavors. If the distillate's not, or the precursor to your distillate isn't properly winterized, you'll get that that burnt rubber condom kind of smell. I don't know
Yeah.
if you know that smell, but there's kind of like a rubber smell, kind of like a condom smell that you can get
Yeah.
to distillate. So the beautiful thing about this, I mean, think about it now. Also, those nano emulsions, Colin, nano emulsion is like fucking 80% water,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
mostly water.
Yeah.
So I mean, when your inputs are mostly water, first of all, they're cheap, right? And so you're, yeah, I mean, that's one of the powerful value propositions of beverages themselves. When you buy a beverage, most of what's in there is water, right?
True. Yeah.
Water with 10 milligrams of THC and some other wiffle dust in there to keep it from settling out and tasting good and looking good.
Yeah.
So the margins on beverages are huge, right? Plus, if you're making your THC from the hemp derived thing, now your input is cheap ass CBD at 350 a kilo, right? So you could be below $1 a gram in your active ingredient formulation for that. So that just makes a really good value proposition in terms of margin, because your sales price isn't going to be dictated by your starting material costs.
Well, yeah, I mean material costs, but I agree with that. I think there's some other things that bring the cost, from what I know, at least at scale, it's why only doing a big launch with the brand makes sense in cannabis right now, because the cost of a pallet is still, I think you're still making like 75 cents a can, right? When it's all said and done.
Well,
You know,
and once you've paid for your the canning facility itself, or the
yeah.
canning line, the canning lines can easily be upwards to $500,000 or $5 million, depending on what your productivity of how many cans a minute you want to make.
Yep.
But ultimately, those machines end up paying for themselves. But you end up having, again, underneath one roof, everything that you need, right? So if you're
Yeah.
chemically converting your CBD into THC, then you're making nano emulsion, then you're putting that nano emulsion into a can. That's all underneath one roof, right? And you're
Yeah.
not there's no regulation there at all, because you're bringing CBD into the building, and
Yeah.
what leaves the building is a can of seltzer that's 0.028% THC.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some people are owning their lines. I mean, I know in their state regulated systems they are. In other cases, they're just white labeling and using a co-manufacturer. And I know that like a co-manufacturer is just a little more expensive than
The problem with
that,
the
but
co-manufacturer, though, Colin, is that now if you're doing that chemical conversion of CBD to THC, now that THC's got to leave the building, right? Right.
yeah, well,
So
they
it's
would, yeah, there's complexities behind that, I think. Yeah, but like and for instance, my buddy Adam, partner, he they're all USDA, FDA certified under the hemp bill, right? And they have all the certs to do all of that, and they're working with upwards to 30 to 40 brands, I believe. And he's got a canning line now that does 12 ounce and slims and whatever talls, whatever he calls them. That's really what he does mainly is the conversion side of stuff for people and services them. So it's interesting to hear him talk about it when we get together. It's a real booming thing. He said like pretty much everybody's, on the regulated side is porting themselves over to doing these things. So it's really, to your point, it's like everybody's doing one version of it, which is interesting because as a chemist, Mark, I'm sure you're like, if the laws just would catch up with itself, we wouldn't have to do things like this, right? From a chemistry point of view, right? Like we're creating dangers where there really shouldn't be, right? Like isomers are being created. We don't really know. Sure, there's clean conversions out there, and I guess but have we really tested for everything? I don't know. I can't answer
no.
that question. So in your professional opinion, we're not there, right? Like we're not testing.
Well, I don't know. I mean, everyone's talking about hemp derived D9, and some people are dead fast against it. Other people claim that it's okay as long as it comes out of mother liquor. Other people say that we're not doing the chemical conversions, but the testing results basically tell another story. It's really difficult, Colin, because the chemical conversion is going to be an order of magnitude cheaper than getting THC from regulated cannabis. So I don't know how you compete. We're in a commodity market where price and cost is going to win all day long. And especially for big beverage, they don't want to tolerate some extra cost because this comes from a different supply chain. They want the cheapest thing that works. And so, yeah, I would think, in their infinite wisdom, what they were thinking is that, well, this is going to be so dilute in the seltzer or the soda that we won't see those non-natural isomers. But what we know from Josh Sviter and Chris up at ProVerde is that under typical screening conditions, yeah, you're at the ragged edge of where your limit of detection, let alone the limit of quantitation is for these things. So can you see some non-natural signatures even when they're diluted down to the seltzer and soda level? Absolutely. But there's just nothing that, is saying that consumption of those non-natural components are not going to be somewhat problematic to humans if you consume a whole lot of them. So in some of these Delta 8 products, you could see as high as 20% of this non-natural iso THC, iso Delta 8. And what we know about iso Delta 8 is that it acts like a cannabinoid, but not through action at the CB1 receptor. So it's hitting a different receptor. So we don't really know all that we need to know about that. But in trace amounts, there are terpenophenolics that are isomers of the natural things. People talk about too, oh, Delta 8 is toxic, Delta 8 toxic. Delta 8 THC is no more toxic than Delta 9 THC. The molecule itself, probably there's nothing wrong with it. What's wrong is all the other isomers that are in those products. And the problem is that by HPLC, they co-elute. So like we were talking before about this near IR method, maybe the near IR method could help us understand how much of these products are in there, because the non-natural isomers they could detect in the presence of these other things. But yeah, we just don't know, because this is kind of an experiment that's happening today. And I think Texas, I don't know if you guys are paying attention to this, but I think Texas just banned all hemp derived cannabinoids. I think that's how I read that. So I think,
oh yeah, they banned everything. Yeah.
they banned everything. Yeah, you see, doing sweeping things like that, and what happened in California, ATN, with Governor Newsom's thing. I think the spirit is that, okay, these are intoxicating products that are high in either Delta 8 or Delta 9 or whatever. These should be regulated under the cannabis laws. They're not part of the hemp thing. The hemp thing was never meant to cover THC, but I guess, again, in their infinite wisdom, I don't think they contemplated, if you look at how many acres of hemp were grown and you take that acreage of hemp and then you say, okay, on an acre of hemp, you could probably get, let's say, 1,000 pounds. And from that 1,000 pounds, if you're at 0.3% ATN, that means you're going to be, with last year's acreage of hemp, you made 62,000 pounds of THC, right? It's at that 0.3%. So let's do some math for a second. So it's 63,000 pounds. Take that, multiply by 454. That's how many grams of THC that 62,000 pounds is. And then take that and divide or multiply that number by 2. That's how many half-gram vape carts you can make. And it turns out that that's a huge fucking number. It's in the millions, right? So even at 0.3% THC that's allowable in what they're calling industrial hemp, that's a lot of THC, man. And like when you make CBD
It's
distillate,
mountains of
so
THC we can't compete with.
when you take distillate from hemp, and typically some hemp varieties are like 40-1, but most of them are about 20-1, and you start crashing out CBD isolate, you now change the ratio of THC in that mother liquor. So like you might take that first 20-1 crop, right? You get a good 20-1 distillate. Probably even that distillate is above the 0.3 percentage, right? Because at 20-1, if you have 20-1 and you're probably up around, maybe 1 or 2 weight percent THC. So even the distillate from the hemp is illegal, okay? By that 0.3
No, well,
threshold.
100%. And
So-
I think go ahead, finish your point.
So when you start crashing out that CBD, you're changing the level. So like after you've done 2 crashes of CBD, that might be 10-1, or it could be as high as 8-1. So now there's a lot more concentrated THC. And so what did Congress think? That people were just going to throw that THC away? Did they think?
What about when you think about making rosin, right, from hemp?
Yeah.
Like a regular OG Kush that fits the bill because it's THCA, and I make hash and I make rosin from that, and I emulsify that and I math that down to 10 milligrams THC per beverage.
Yep. Well, you have to
that's happening. It's not the mainstream, but that is happening, and that is
100%.
available. You can buy that, I believe, in bulk.
You can, yeah. I've been seeing it online a bunch. I mean, you have to fraction it to get it to where it needs to be, but it's possible. There's also things happening though, but that are like blends of CBG, right, into that are rosin, and then they're calling it rosin, right? That's hemp compliant. So people have to watch out for that because names are now just, it seems like in 2025, just used like however they see fit, without following the actual definition of it, like what is rosin, what is hash. So I think there's also things like that happening in the solventless realm of the hemp world, which is not great because who knows what's in there, at some point. There's things that there's bad actors still out there. However, I think, Mark, you're pointing out something that's really kind of important here, which is there's so much pressure all around us at all times in terms of just availability that there never was before. And that's I think that's the what I take away is like, but I keep thinking about it like, well, what if the laws were different? They would stop doing mother liquor, right? They would just grow plants. They would just grow the right plants. But it sounds to me like maybe that's not the case from what you just said.
Well, it's interesting. There's this company out there. They're called 5CBD, and all their products are 5-1 CBD to THC, right? And so that's a mother liquor, man. It's like they're taking mother liquor and they're putting it in the gummies and milk chocolates and all kinds of different things. But the thing is when you concentrate that mother liquor, you're concentrating all the other extractables that kind of come along for the ride, right? Because when you make that distillate, you could characterize probably like about 90% of that distillate, but 10% goes kind of like into the bucket of, it's fats, waxes, or lipids, or things that just kind of came along for the ride. Well, every time you crash out more and more CBD, that number also goes up. So because you're basically removing CBD isolate from your distillate. So every time you remove CBD isolate, the concentration of everything else that's in there goes up. So that's why often mother liquor's got a real rank flavor to it. I mean, it's kind of like if you just took a CBD distillate and made like a gummy or a brownie or a beverage or something like that, if you take that same recipe and make it from mother liquor, you're like, oh, we got more THC in here. We'll definitely feel it. Well, you could definitely feel it, but you could also taste it because as you concentrate your mother liquor, all those other plant extractables kind of concentrate too as well.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's a master class in, chemistry here, everyone. Thanks for going over that. I think
It's just chemistry, man.
Yeah, but it's, I think everyone wonders out there, like, we have a lot of little worlds in which we occupy, right? And there's so much to really pay attention to. And I know I'm guilty of it myself, where I get stuck in my lab and I'm just making hash and that's all that the world exists around me is. But you know, the hemp world's interesting. I think, what you're doing, Dutch, out there is you're just waiting on the laws to kind of just come into action right now. Is that there's already a bill on the table? Is you if you've
Yeah. Applications in, rules are written. We're literally just at the final step before they start. People are ready for inspection. It could start happening in the next 4 weeks.
Oh, nice.
The beginning of the rollout. But the hemp scene, like, just to kind of go back to it a little bit, like, it just is this massive thing that most of us who are dealing in regulated recreational just haven't paid a lot of attention to, haven't taken it seriously, but it has become and continues to grow and is a massive industry. And you can order online from many places. On Amazon, you can order weed, $40 eighths. They're, spray packs, fucking whatever you want, THCA, to your door. And everyone doesn't really know that, but it is a huge thing, and it's still legal. And that there's rumors that could change with the farm bill, but that just keeps getting pushed back. And as that's happened, more companies have invested more money and lots of money, and I don't see it going away. It's interesting because in Washington, they did the same thing. They said, oh shit, there's all these D8 gummies in the gas station. The kids are going to get high. So then they said no THC in any hemp products. California followed suit. Now we're here in Texas is following suit. Minnesota's answer to it was, all right, we'll allow this low potency thing, but they hadn't opened their recreational. And so that kind of changed the paradigm for everybody, because before there was a recreational market in Minnesota, there was this can market, right, where you could buy, and they were everywhere and easy. And so it changed the paradigm a bit. And I don't really know what my point is, other than fucking hemp is alive and well, and it's not going anywhere really right now. Like, it could in 6 months, it could in a year, 2 years, but I think that there's so much money behind it and so much lobby that it's just going to be what it is, and
Yeah, no, I mean it's embedded in the alcohol system at this point. And from what I see, like, I was looking at distribution the other day, just kind of like typing in like who carries what and where and what states, and I mean, I just said it out loud to myself. Wow, it's happened. It's not happening. It's already happened.
and to
It's
the point where I
already
have a
there.
hemp. Sorry to cut you off, Colin.
Yeah, no, go for it.
I have a hemp license, right? And
Yeah.
and I use it just to hold my plants,
Yeah.
really. But I could just start selling weed online on my website,
Yep.
because I have a credit card processor. Like, you could say, hey, Dutch, I want some Black Wap Gold online, dude. $40.
Totally.
It ships on Monday.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that you're not wrong. I mean, that's kind of what a lot of individuals I know have been legacy in Mendo, for instance, are looking at doing actually. But hey, it's there's a lot of long way to go with all this. So why not see how you can touch more people? I encourage that. You know, like, if you can, why not try? It definitely will, if done right, could open up more doors. I think that's real. But hey, I'm gonna have to jump here. I'm gonna leave this on, and I really appreciate everyone here. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Ryan, Etienne, Mark. Love the conversation. Dutch, amazing. Storm, nice
Well,
to meet you, brother. I'll be around. Gotta do some things around here. But
we'll keep it going, Colin.
yeah.
I'm gonna actually I'm gonna do a share. Uh, I sent a request for a share screen, Marcus. Wanted to show. I got turned on. I put it in the hand. Let me put it in the chat too. There's in the.
I just turned on multiple sharing, so you got it.
All right, let me put it on. Okay. So we just got made aware that after 50 years, plus the Dutch have decided that Amsterdam has decided to kick off a collection of cannabis culture. And so the city archives is creating a collection on cannabis culture in Amsterdam. Special part of Amsterdam's cultural history deserves a place in our collection. Come to kick off with this project on the 23rd of May and think about how we can record this heritage. So, my Dutch friends or those who are traveling, that's actually happening. The Dutch government has finally decided that cannabis is actually part of the culture, which has actually been part of, but they're actually documenting it. So yeah, they're looking for people to contribute. So yeah, if you're in Amsterdam, check it out. The local authority of the city archives is attempting to gather historical information about cannabis on the 23rd at the Amsterdam City Archives at the Bodesplein, second floor, 1:30 to 4:50 p.m. Free admission, first come, first serve. So it starts with coffee and tea at 13:30 and then it goes on from there. So if you're in the Netherlands and want to help with the historical perspective or contribute to or have something to contribute, there you go, peoples. Which I thought is pretty cool and well past due, but glad to see that the Dutch in their pragmatic ways, they're like, okay, let's have this discussion. So yeah, keep that in mind. So I just wanted to share that because we're hash related, and of course, Dutch is hash related, and Amsterdam, of course, is very hash related. Because I was taught early on, you go to the Netherlands for the hash. It's all about the
Did you say that's
hash,
the
right?
28th, Etienne?
It's 23rd. 23rd.
Oh, so that was 2 days ago.
Oh, already
Oh,
happened 2 days ago. Sorry. But that's happening is still pretty fucking cool.
No,
yes.
no stoners here.
No stoners here. No, 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 no.
Well, I'm sure there's some things we can get them from Horror Farm. I mean, there's a couple. I know there's a couple of big tree branches, main stalks out there that maybe end up over there. Who knows? It's pretty cool
Yeah,
that you're doing that. Finally recognizing. I mean, how much money do you think cannabis has brought into Amsterdam?
billions on top of look, Sensi Seed Banks has done their own museum there, right? Their own hemp museum, and Sensi's museum's been there for years until he spent 5 years renovating that castle in Barcelona that is now, I guess, the premier collection is in Barcelona. But Ben Dronkers is I hope he'll be able to share some of that with them, or they'll purchase some of, the historical things that are available that have made, Dutch cannabis, world known, right? We all migrated there. I met Bubbleman there. I've run into many people there over the cannabis cups and, just visiting, Amsterdam itself. So it's kind of always been a mecca, and it's a shame that it's taken this long for them to acknowledge their historical model, because we've seen them dismantle, parts of their cultural and their heritage. So go Amsterdam.
International Hemp Association has been based out of Amsterdam since its inception. I mean, yeah, like I said the other day with Rob, Amsterdam's kind of been this refuge, right? And even a lot of these important American artifacts ended up over in Europe because
Well, how many important Americans ended up over there, as refugees over the years? Because that's just the reality of right, the prohibition here in America and Canada and others. There's a whole gathering of people I would run into and hang out with in Amsterdam that are, including, David. Right? I mean, he left, the United States because of the realities and saw what was happening there. So to go to be invited to his house, etc. There is still an honor I will always cherish.
yeah. Tell me about it. Diana says hi, by the way. She just asked me to say hello to everyone.
Much love, Diana. Big hugs and kisses to you and the girls.
Yeah.
So it's just great to see that there's so much progression and change in hash over the years, right? We've been doing hash church a decade. And in this past decade, we've seen we literally watched rosin be created right here, shared in it, and watched it progress to right. I mean, the quality as well as the mechanization, right, is more consistent, right? Right back in 2017, right, we were using hair straighteners, right? Remember that?
Well,
Now
the interesting thing I think is what's next, right?
right.
I mean, come from BHO to where we are now in 20 years.
Nobody
So,
thought squishing something with heat was going to create a whole new concentrate line, which oddly enough is illegal in the Netherlands because it's considered a hard drug, right, Brian?
right. Yep. It's essentially, yeah, they consider it an oil or an extract, which is verboten cannot do. So, yeah, it's kind of bizarre. But in fact, well, you heard the same thing, HN, yesterday from Derek. I mean, people want the traditional hashish because that's what people are used to getting. And so these newfangled high monoterp rosins are not, you can't use them. It's one of the funny things about cannabis is like, we have these products and then we develop the right ways of consuming them and all the tools that go along with their use. I mean, bongs and, dab rigs, obviously. So, we were talking about the skillet the other day. And it's like the evolution of these tools, and they really suit the type of hash. I remember I had a friend of mine, a guy named Redbeard out in British Columbia. He made me a nice double bubbler piece that I brought to a distributor of mine in Italy. And I showed up and I had this doubler, and I gave it to him, and he went and got some traditional hash and put it in. It just didn't work right. Right? It was like that tool was for a more modern hashish. And what they were using in Italy at the time was, these are still using them now, are these chillums, right? Where you take a bunch of tobacco and you pack it in the chillum with the hash and it burns properly. And it's like that tool is perfect for the product, right? But like if you were to go and put a bunch of rosin in that, it's just not the right device for it, you
No,
know?
but the thing with the chillum, like if you don't smoke tobacco, it
Oh
puts
yeah.
you on your arse, eh?
Yeah, no, they're
Like
horrible.
that,
Yeah.
smoking that cigarette in like one hit, basically. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
we
No,
used to
I the
do
first
that at
first time I had one
at
of those, it had
Cyclones festivals. No, I can't do that anymore. So I just exclusively dab these days.
yeah. Well, I think I almost vomited the first time I had one of those. I went
No,
white.
no.
So it's not about the hashish, it's a big dose of nicotine. But it's yeah, it's just interesting that all over the world, like we have the right device, which is again, it's one of these funny things that I always thought when, when the public companies came into cannabis and they were all kind of like, "Oh, you silly stoners, we'll show you how you should be taking your drug." Right? We're gonna put THC into drinks, and that's what everybody will be using in the next 5 years. And of course, that didn't happen. And instead, now the pharmacies have like vitamin C gummies in them, right? It's like they've not only did we not take their methods, but they're now taking our methods and using them to distribute things like vitamins, which is kind of funny. But yeah, there is an interesting thing where it's part of this, like, cannabis leads to art, or not arts and crafts. Yeah, cannabis leads to arts and crafts. It's like the most dangerous thing that happens, right? And people are
Yeah.
making bongs and figuring out new ways to make extracts. I mean, And even, like we were talking about last week, like even with coming down to like these deep analyses that we do on the plants, that's now bleeding into hops, right? And people are starting to really try to breed new hops using chemistry because they want to improve the beer, but they wouldn't have probably done that if we hadn't been doing it in the cannabis industry. So our
Yeah,
tinkering ways, are always yielding new roads. So it's just I wonder where we're going to be in another 5 years.
yeah.
We're not smoking
That's
skillets anymore.
No, we went from males to females, right? And now we've got to electronic. So, what's the next delivery methodologies, right?
Yeah.
Well, my battery's about to die, gentlemen. So I have to, on that note, good conversations. Thanks for talking, Dr. Mark. Appreciate you breaking down some of that stuff. And nice to meet you, Storm. Have a good day, everyone.
Be
Cheers,
safe,
guys.
Dutch.
awesome. Cheers, guys.
Take care, Dutch.
Lull in the conversation, take one. Lull in the conversation, take one. So Storm, what is happening currently in South Africa, right? We know that the government just tried to pull shenanigans regarding, edibles, etc. So, do you have an idea on what's happening regarding concentrates or, flowers? Besides, I know people are allowed to grow themselves, but it's not like they can go and find, clones or seeds immediately, right? Is that a hard thing to do?
Easily. No, there's a members club in every shopping center. Basically, you can just go to literally your closest shopping center, and you can buy flour. The concentrates and hash thing is not so like it's a very flour focused market. Yeah, people who dab, then it's a very rosin is a very expensive thing. So people are typically more dabbing the BHO and the CO2 extract. It's a really good ethanol extract. But people grow, and we do the members club things, and people grow, and it's like no one's stopping us, and it's insane. It's insane what's going on, and there's very little regulation. Where the regulation lies is in the medical side of things, but that's the whole big pharma mission. To get a license for that is like R250,000 just for the license, and then all your compliance and everything to do it. So it makes it inaccessible for sort of a home-sized producer or a larger homes or like a homestead or a farm-sized producer to get that license is a bit of a mission. So there's no like agricultural body that's responsible for anything that's got to do with anything that's cannabis, only hemp. And so a lot of people are doing a hemp permit or a hemp license and then just growing weed and doing the whole thing under the guise of a hemp permit, which works. Basically, our government is completely clueless, and unfortunately, so they, especially when it comes to cannabis, so they are not. They passed the law in 2017, but it needs active drive from the people, which Myrtle and Fields of Green for All and Chiba are all collectively, doing. But it takes time, the saying the wheels of bureaucracy turn slowly. And in Africa, everything turns slow, like 10 times slower than in places like the US or Canada or Europe. And there's so much corruption in our government system that any funding that goes anywhere just gets like pocketed so quickly. So it's an uphill battle. It's like we're pushing a boulder up a hill at the moment. So the general community kind of went, well, you can't arrest all of us, and now all of a sudden there's a weed shop in every shopping center. You can get delivery services. Everyone's just advertising, blatantly selling pens and gummies, and it's a full-blown industry, and it's amazing. Clones, easy to get, locally manufactured, high-quality grow lights and hydroponic equipment, living soils, everything. It's exploded. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to watch.
It's always fascinating.
Varieties that are being grown down there. Sorry, Etienne. I was just wondering what the varieties are that are being grown.
I mean, anything you can imagine. Ethos is very popular. DNA, genetics, greenhouse seed company, a lot of the Dutch, but the all-time biggest, most widely grown, greatest goat variety in South Africa, the bit of a controversial one, is cheese, Exodus cheese or UK cheese or Dutch cheese. That's probably been one of the most prevalent cultivars grown since the early 2000s. There's a legacy cut that's been going around, and so cheese. But yeah, we've got some really talented breeders that are working with some more hash plant varieties like strains from Oni and Farmhouse Studios, a shout out to those guys, and a couple of others. And basically, we're starting breeding projects to breed for hash and breed for yield and terpene production and solventless production. So, and actually get data on these things, wash these plants and establish cuts. But yeah, we've got guys that have really good nurseries, and through tissue culture, we're importing some cuts from the States and from Canada. And so we're getting some breeders. Yeah, there's for how things are being done in terms of regulation. So there's some guys that are doing things extremely well, like distributing genetics, but they're getting quarterly HLVD tests done or full panel tests done for all viroids and pathogens, so that and then there's other guys that are not doing that. And so, there's just regulation is the biggest challenge at this point, because it's such a gray area. Everyone's just operating in a gray, unless you're a facility and you've got the millions and millions of rands to finance the venture. People aren't really too concerned about regulation. So I think, in South Africa in general, we are a huge alcohol culture, like massive, big wine. So just like there's a weed store on every shop or cannabis store on every shop, there's a bottle store on every shopping center as well. And So it makes sense that the cannabis industry would follow suit, or that the government will, they haven't. It's just pharmaceutically regulated, and not regulated. So if there was a sort of middle ground where you could get a permit like you can for alcohol production, and you get the permit for retail and all that sort of stuff, but at the moment everyone's just setting up a private members club, and they're leveraging the private members club model very much like they're doing in Barcelona, Spain and stuff.
And there's no over regulatory agency, so it's a free for all for the most part.
Yeah, all the regulatory bodies are specific to the pharmaceutical, the big pharmaceutical cultivation operations. So they're not, they're there to make sure that the operations are compliant for the pharmaceutical compliance and GMP certification and all of that jazz, that home growers don't need to, be too worried about. And the home grower market or sector is what is supplying, for the most part, a lot of the members clubs are like larger grows. I say home grows, but they're not home grows. They're like just independent farms that are not following like pharmaceutical licensing. But yeah, I mean, steps in the right direction. Like I said, the Fields of Green for All with Myrtle and the Dach couple and Chiba are doing some really good things and working very closely with government is for not only developing the cannabis industry, but using it and leveraging it for job creation in the more rural areas of South Africa. So, a job creation is a massive ongoing conversation in South Africa, because we have such a large demographic of our population that is unemployed, and they aren't, and it's just because the jobs are just not there for them to have. So, cannabis offers, a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of job creation and economic stimulation. But once again, it all boils down to our government. So, and what legislation gets put in place, and what shenanigans tried to get pulled, and our government loves pulling shenanigans all the time, and a lot of money goes missing a lot of the time. So, if we want to create the jobs and create the industry and stimulate the economy, unfortunately, the gatekeepers kind of throttle everything. That's not a problem that's unique to cannabis. That's a problem that our country faces, on another level. So, yeah, these are my stories.
How
And I
interesting
take it-
that North America is corporate and across the Atlantic is the divide. And it seems to be that everything comes out from across the Atlantic is this association model, right? This members club model, where they're kind of keeping the profit out. Do they have to be non-profit, these member clubs, or no? In South Africa? Storm?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it's a non-profit. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah, so they are non-profit. So the model is you set up a non-profit organization, and that is the club, and members come and pay membership fees, and they pay cultivation fees. And when sharing flower, and then you stay away from the word sell and sale and buy and typical words of trading. And then there's typically what they'll do is then set up a parallel business that will be like a coffee shop or a restaurant or something that's doing just perfectly legitimate business. And so people come and buy the food from business for profit, and then the members club runs through the non-profit organization. So it's a bit of a convoluted, jumping through loopholes way to operate. And so much so that there are actually just the dispensary model is quite prevalent as well. Like there are many, I can go into a shopping center and I can just walk up to a counter and I can buy gummies easily, any shopping center that I want, which is technically not legal. It's technically not even technically not legal. It's just plain not legal. But people don't really care because the system is so corrupt in South Africa that you can get away with anything. And, part of it is a beauty. It offers us as citizens a lot of freedom. We're not sort of policed by our state. But at the same time, it comes with the downside of, the state doesn't really know how to run the country, doesn't really know how to deliver on services. And so as a result, crime soars and, corruption soars and everything soars. And yeah, that's just another day in Africa.
And I take it most of it's outdoor, more than 99% of it, since I know electricity can be challenging, but I would anticipate the majority of it is outdoor.
A lot of it is outdoor, but there are some very large indoor cultivation facilities, and there's a large indoor growing culture. Because there's a demand for indoor cultivated flower. In the end of the day, the market sees it as superior and more premium, although with light-assisted greenhouse, climate-controlled greenhouses, we're achieving virtually the same sort of quality that is achieved through an indoor grow. They are still indoor grows. But the electricity issue is an issue. We have what is known as load shedding, which is basically planned power outages to take load off of the grid, basically, because the 30, 40 years. And I know of cultivation facilities that were not able to get, because they were spending so much on diesel to run generators in backup power to get their plants through the flowering cycle. They weren't able to get the price to recover their costs. So they ended up just stopping cultivating cannabis altogether and just turned their space into a mushroom cultivation facility. And they started cultivating psilocybin and lion's mane and oyster mushrooms and reishi and, every other medical mushroom. So, that's a lot of people are growing outdoors though. We've got a lot of space. That's the big thing. We've got vast space. I mean, where I live, we've got 8 acres of land, which is not typical. We're very fortunate where we stay, but around where we live, all the properties are 8 acres, 8, 9, 10 acres of land. And we've actually got I'm pointing, you can't see, but just on the other side of the block where we live, a medical cannabis facility, just where we walk our dogs past it. And that's indoor and outdoor. They've got 2 tunnels. Well, greenhouse, not outdoor. They've got 2 tunnels with HPS lights run in the tunnels, and then they've got an indoor hydroponic facility as well with HPS lights. So yeah, we have a long history of cannabis consumption in Africa. So people have been growing modern weed, modern cultivars, and growing it like professionally since the 90s here, and it's been going. People, yeah, us South Africans know what we're doing.
Well, you also have a love for the plant, and have for decades. As I said, first plant
Yes,
grew in the '80s was Durban poison, and it's a known cultivar, and yeah, it's even won Cannabis Cup because it's the quality of African genetics has always been something many cannabis connoisseurs have appreciated, because there's just something about that South African sun and the dry everything, it's all that uniqueness that is the terroir, right? So yeah.
yes, yeah, yeah. No, it's yeah, exciting times. And next week we've got the Chiba Cannabis and Hemp Summit. So going to be and Cannabis Expo in collaboration with the Cannabis Expo. So that will be a big B2C and B2B sort of conference style event that will take place next weekend. And that's just another way in which we're trying to stimulate this industry and grow.
No, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to educate us about South Africa, because there's a lot of changing aspects of we just saw with Germany allowing for home consult consumption, I mean home cultivation, and we know that that's allowed there in South Africa. And so it's do you see any like the Emerald Cups and the High Times Cannabis Cups? Do you see cannabis competitions rising in South Africa, or is that something that's outside of the realm?
No, absolutely. No, there are competitions. There actually are too many competitions at the moment, to the point where it's sort of diluted which ones have more prestige and which ones don't sort of carry that prestige. But yeah, there are. We have the Amber Cup, which is Fields of Green for All, Myrtles and Them's event in October. But that is a concentrate exclusive competition kind of cup. And then we actually had Full Moon Sesh. They did a Cape Town takeover. So I live in Johannesburg city, sort of inland north of northern South Africa. And then right in the southern tip in the Western Cape is the city of Cape Town, Marcus. And so, yeah, we had Full Moon Sesh come through, and they did a takeover. We've got some incredible hash makers down in Cape Town that hosted the Full Moon Sesh. And yeah, we've got an incredible hash making culture. The flower, everyone grows a lot of weed. Like I said, the cannabis flower competitions are very many, so the prestige kind of gets diluted. So yeah, um, I think that we're moving into a stage of bringing international events to South Africa. So we're always looking at bringing whatever, or whoever wants to come and bring their event to South Africa, we can do a takeover here,
Legends of Hashish South Africa edition. Dude,
Legends
it's
of
so good to hear
Hashish
you share,
Africa
man.
edition.
I'm
We
so
can do
glad you came.
Africa edition.
Yeah, of course, of course. I'm actually on a plane right now. First time I've ever been on a plane doing hash church, so that's kind of different.
Long
But
rip.
yeah, well, I just pulled my jar out, and actually, I kind of was like, "Ooh, that's actually pretty stinky," so I put that right back. But I am, yeah, I am definitely on a plane.
Church on a
So,
plane.
church on a plane, man.
Church.
It's nice to hear you guys. I've just been listening to you guys talk. It was great to listen to you, Dr. Mark, and the whole conversation that led in with Joshua earlier, Dutch Grown, and Storm coming in and sharing everything that he's doing. It's really it's good to hear. It's nice to see that we're making waves in one country after another. I love that we're kind of falling behind Etienne in the sense of like visiting countries that are popping off. It's like, Jesus Christ, I don't have the ability to travel for 9 months of the year and just go see cool people in cool countries, but that's the mission. So I am going to pretty much sign out because I'm on a plane, and I'm going to keep Hash Church going probably for the next 20 or 30 minutes until my wife shows up at my house and can turn it off. So you guys are free to continue the wonderful conversation. We have about 20 minutes left, and I'll just be on the plane here listening. Peace.
Awesome. Marcus, thank you so much for having me. Very grateful.
No,
Happy to have you, brother.
Yeah.
He's going to get high on the plane.
Yeah, I was gonna say have a safe flight, no safety meetings in the bathroom.
right? Safety briefing.
I don't want to hear that a man got it thrown off an Air Canada flight tomorrow.
This is the trick. Go into the
Yeah.
bathroom with an open jar of the stinkiest resin you have. Close the jar, come out of the bathroom, tell the lady the bathroom smells like marijuana. She'll come in, she'll confirm that it does. Now you're free to go on with your business.
The genius of Bubble Man, ladies and gentlemen. You now know how to fly Air Canada.
I got a better one. Bring an inflatable neck pillow and
fill it with vapor
into the neck pillow.
There you go.
10 dabs. What is that? A 10 dab neck pillow you got there,
Yeah,
Sheldon?
Right. And then when you get to the airport, you could open the neck pillow and exhaust
No,
it.
listen, the funniest thing in the world is if that was a real thing and you were in the airport and you saw Skunkman Sam with a fucking tractor tire tube around his neck.
Oh no, it'll be a mothership one, right? Deppy will make one, right, specifically for you. So
I just mean a tire that's the size of a tractor tire.
Yeah.
Because Sam couldn't get enough.
One of those donuts that you pull behind your boat.
Exactly.
I don't think you want to be seen blowing into your butt tube, but yeah.
It's true. Oh, about Canada. Vous parlez français? Moi, je parle français.
Please stow your hash in the upward.
Right.
Under the seat in front of you.
Security pulled my Puffco out. He's like, "What's this?" I'm like, "That's my Puffco." She's like, "Well, what's that?" I'm like, "Well, it's an electric pipe." And Ruben is on the floor laughing. He's like, "It's like you thought she would know what the Puffco was." I was like, "Well, I don't know. She must have seen one before me."
It's for quantifying water lilies, don't you know, ma'am?
I went down to Barcelona the other day, and I didn't disassemble the bowl, but I took the glass part off the bottom, and they made me take it out at security. They just wanted to see that it was what do you call it, like an inhaler or something like that. So the new world of traveling from non-regulated zone to non-regulated zone with equipment.
Well, it should be legal worldwide. I mean, medicine. I mean, it is medically legal worldwide. right? At least from the UN's perspective, so everybody should be able to. Now, whether that country's going to allow it or not, that's where everybody has to test those, proverbial waters. But,
Yeah, still not there
Yeah,
yet.
well, not everyone's in the UN either, not every, like
yeah.
BRICS countries are not the most cannabis friendly, although we're a BRICS nation, but like Russia, China, not really the most.
No, we saw a guy detained this past week, I guess, in Indonesia, an American basketball player who was playing, and he brought edibles with him. Why he thought that was a good idea, and of all places where it's executionable, no, but he did, and so yeah. Now another American basketball player has been caught with cannabis, and this one is potentially looking at execution.
Oh,
So
great.
again, this is why I'm working with Myrtle and our friends at the Cannabis Embassy and Fields of Green for All, for the simple fact that, people can still be executed for cannabis, and it's absolutely horrible. Nobody should die for a plant, especially a beneficial plant. And that was this guy's medicine. He brought it with him. However, there is a way for countries like that you can fill out paperwork and declare and bring in your medicine. I know people like Ben Dronkers. He lives in a country where he has to bring his own medical supply and it has to be checked. Otherwise, he could be hanged for necessarily doing that sort of stuff. So there are
Yeah.
ways you can do that, but you have to be very serious and proactive about such things, and countries can deny you.
I've also found over here in Europe, with just different conferences and stuff at different times, Americans are nuts with what they do. I mean, they bring way too much weed, and I was in my CRS meeting once, and it was getting to the point where there was more commercial people in there. She had like half a pound and 56 grams probably at least in pre-rolled joints and edibles and everything. And it was just like, what do you like? She had to come through this. It was in Baveno, Italy. It was like 2015, I think, or 2014. And you have to come through Milan airport if you're flying in. And just like bringing that into Milan is just, it's death wish. It's not death sentence, but it's like, you really have to be. And she just didn't know, I guess, that it was such a heat score. And she got lucky, but you're really you're playing a game with people that are not fucking around, right? And sure, when it goes well, you're fine, but when it goes poorly, you're really not in a good condition. So I always find, maybe it's not the best quality, but there's always weed where you go. And for me, if it's not good enough quality, I just don't consume it, and that's cool. But it's like the way I see it, it's like if I get caught for having some kind of silly problem, that just jeopardizes my ability to do work in the future, and I'm not willing to take that risk.
Yeah, the same. Because yeah, once Interpol and all that's not something you want to fuck with, and yeah.
We had a friend, someone showed up. I met him on a barbecue a week ago or two, 10 days ago maybe. He got on a plane to go to Greece the next day and went through security, and he hadn't properly stowed his stuff in his luggage, and yeah, they found a bunch of THC crystals, I think it was, like diamonds, and it caused all sorts of problems. And they messed their flight, and multi-thousand euro lawyers, and it's just starting. I don't know if they've let them off or what, but it's not worth the headache. Be
Nah.
smart. Be smart, people. Put your shit in your fucking carry on. You know what I mean? Like, and try not to do it's one thing within the European Union, but bringing stuff in and out is you're kind of asking for a problem.
Dude, I don't even know how much I'd have to have a problem. Like I jokingly told the lady my carry-on bag was full of hash, bars of hash, and she just like chuckled and didn't even look in my bag.
Yeah, I remember when I had my I had a medical license in Canada and I was traveling with a significant amount, 2,500 grams. I was taking samples back east to show a facility, and this was pre-legalization. And in fact, the only thing on my in my rolling bag was my computer and a bunch of containers, and my license, of course, right on top. And I went through security, and the guy was like, "I need to go through your bag," and I said, "You know, my medical marijuana's in there." And he opened it up and checked and made sure, and he was okay with it. But they can definitely be, you know, on the, like for example, on the other end. I guess that was my carry-on bag, but my larger knapsack that I was traveling with at the time also had a bunch of flour in it, and it must have stuck out the bottom of the plane, and they got quite bent out of shape about the whole thing.
Hey Ryan, want to hear something awesome?
Yeah, I did.
The steward, there was a lady coming to sit next to me, and the stewardess ran over to her and said, "No, you can't sit in that seat. It doesn't recline. I'm sorry." And she had a long conversation. And then she sent the woman off in the other direction. And then she looked at me and she said, "You will be sitting alone today, sir," with a smile, and winked at me. And
Yeah,
it's a full plane, and I have 3 seats.
good for you. I had that the other day. It made a big
Dude,
difference.
that's why I'm telling you, because I saw
Yeah.
your feet laying on the fucking chair.
It's the best way to fly. You have no idea. You put those middle arm rests up and kick back, stretch
Dude,
out.
I just got a free pod.
Yeah, you did. That's great. I'm glad you're gonna have a comfy flight back to Montreal. Are you flying direct to Montreal?
Absolutely.
Nice. Well, you're gonna have some fun. Montreal's a great city.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing this Sam and Justin. They came on Hash Church that day from Canara, and go check out their facility. Their facility is just absolutely and utterly ridiculous. I'm excited to show them the NIR to test their nutrients in the plants, and kind of talk hash and maybe do a little Bubble Man brand deal with those guys if all works out.
Amazing.
Yeah, got to keep it going, guys. Got to keep the hustle going. My
Yeah,
wife is
I'd love
really
to get
close to
this.
home, so we'll what's that? Go ahead, Swans.
I'd love to get the Bubble Man brand in South Africa, man. Yeah, definitely would love to help that hustle go.
Yeah, well, man, well, you're definitely the guy I'll be talking to. You. I'm sure you'll be the reason I get down there. Ruben was telling me we got to go down and visit you guys. So I think Ruben and I are going to make some good little tours here. We might go to Mary Jane in Berlin next month, and we'll see where we're after that.
Awesome, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much again for having me on. I hope to be on again in future, man. But I do also need to bounce. It's almost 10 o'clock at night. So it's been a late been a late hash church for me. But yeah, thank you very much. It's been wonderful meeting you guys. And yeah, blessings to everyone. Thank you very much,
Thanks for
Marcus.
joining us. Thanks for joining us for
Thanks,
the
Storm.
South African Hash Church late night edition.
Etienne, Marcus, thank you very much. Cheers, guys.
Looking forward to it in the future, man. Be safe out there. Yeah, I need an airport. I need every airport to replicate exactly what Canada Airport does. Have a nice smoking section outside. Yeah, that's kind of needed. I'd love it even inside, but I'll take the outside.
Isn't that nice? So
Yeah,
nice.
I want to experience that someday. That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, doing it legally, So what's going on with Vermont, Dr. Scaldone? Is what's going on with I know there are distribution points in areas and legalization. Is it on point? Do you have the ability for home grow there still, or no?
Yeah, yeah, we do. It's a small market. I mean, there's not a lot of people who live in Vermont, right? I think it's like, less than like 500,000 people live here, but like we get 13 million visitors a year. So a lot of out-of-state money comes in. A lot of people, vacation up here in the summertime. We're right here on Lake Champlain, and oh, it's so beautiful in the springtime just to see the lake come alive. Actually, the lake froze over this year from one side to the other, so you could walk from Vermont to New York. Actually, I could walk probably to Canada, I think, from here. So yeah, so we had a nice, quick spring, kind of like a quick transition between winter and spring. And then the lake just comes alive. We're right next to a marina, so you start seeing the boats come in the water and see the sailboats go by and all the fishermen go by. So the whole lake comes to life. And yeah, we do get a lot of vacation kind of people up here. Bring their boat up here, put their boat in the lake, and boat around and whatnot. So yeah, the market up here, I don't know. I mean, seems like prices are kind of high at the dispensary. Eighths are around $40, $50 an eighth. Seems like a lot for 3.5 grams, right?
What about a gram of concentrate?
Jesus.
Yeah, well, actually, concentrates. Vermont's in the chat here. He'll tell you we have a stupid potency cap on concentrates. It's supposed to be 60%.
That's because you border Montreal.
Yeah, it's supposed to be.
What's your cap?
Yeah, it's because Kevin Sabet got to your legislature is why that happened.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, this potency caps.
But it is interesting that he borders the only. It is interesting that he borders the only province in Canada that has a potency cap on all cannabis products.
That is weird, right?
Listen, not to shut this down, but my wife is at my computer. This is my only opportunity for her to shut it all down. So I just want to thank everyone for coming out today. We'll hit you guys up another time. Want to thank Wade, of course, for sharing his journey with us. Thanks everyone who's watched. Thanks to our sponsors, Puffco and Grassroot Fabric Pots and Puffco and the Press Club and Bubble Bags. And we will see you at the same bat time, same bat place next week on Sunday. And we'll all be back for some wonderful conversation. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate you. Shar, if you're watching, you can shut her down. And now we'll wait and see how fast my wife can get it done.
All right, everybody.
Bye. Love y'all.
Getting high on the plane.
Yeah, buddy. That's right. That's right. Here, one last visual of the bubble man on the plane. Recording stops. So now
perfect.
Next up, she stops the YouTube video. Thank you, sweetie. You're such an awesome person.
Way to go.